We're live, baby. We'll figure it out. I'll mess around with it. He's Larry Krueger. I'm Cyrus Sotzes. This is a dual stream. It's the Krug Show. It's Golden Days. We're talking Warriors and trades. Who's out there if Lauri Markkanen doesn't work out? We're going to break it all down next. Let's go.
That is it for us today, and we will leave you with I can't do it. No. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. And things suck. Woo! Let's go.
In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Come on and break me off. Cause I get what I want and I like what I see.
This part me, about to go. Hey there. Larry Krueger in the house. What is up, brother? Do you want to zoom in on our cam? Is that what you were saying? Like you like?
Oh no, I was just saying. I mean, believe me, either way is fine with me. Okay. But you have options. That's the beauty of YouTube. You have options.
Absolutely, Larry Krueger. You can follow him on Twitter and I think all social media platforms as Sports Larry K. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at Dog Wild, and I make occasional appearances on Twitter at Surf Journalist. Larry, how the hell are you doing? You have sponsors. I have sponsors. Fire away. Let's get that rolling if you want.
Yeah, well, of course, the Krug Show always brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're open 7 days a week. They've got 2 locations, Corte Madera and Emeryville. They're open from 11 a.m. every morning till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get the brisket chili. It's all amazing, but go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue. They're down in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. And call my good friend Anthony Catania down there at 831-521-5264. He just sent me a note last night, Cy, saying that his advertising on the Krug Show is one of the best decisions he's ever made. He says he's getting the phone is ringing constantly. People are coming in constantly mentioning that they've caught his ads on the Krug Show. So the first Friday of every month in the hot summer months, they do kind of like a sidewalk deal down there at Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. So check them out on Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove. And also thanks to Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description and use that promo code Krug, Krug, and they will match you up to your first $100. So thanks to all of our sponsors for sponsoring the Krug Show as we approach 50,000 subs.
Jesus Christ.
We promise to be at 50,000 subs before week 1 of the NFL season, Niners Jets. Before we get there, we will reach 50,000 subs.
Bravo, man. I got to 13K in the last show. I'm nearly 2,000 here. If I get to do 50K, what the heck? Congratulations, bro. That is well-deserved.
Well, we're sitting right now at 44,232. So we're still, 5,000 plus away. But we will get there before week 1.
Bravo, dude. I'm incredibly happy for you, man. Huge FU to all the legacy media organizations out there who have taken you for granted, dude. That is insane. I'm super happy for you. Every time you do the Pig and the Pickle thing, you make me hungry. That's the only thing I don't like about that ad, because you read it and I'm just thinking about that brisket. I'm thinking about that barbecue, and I want me some Pig and the Pickle now. Unfortunately, we got to talk for the next hour or two, and I'm going to starve. But that's an incredible compliment. I hope they take that.
I owe you lunch at Pig and a Pickle. We will go there and dine, and you will love it.
I can't wait, man. And I hope this is a sign of positive things for Golden Days. I got a sponsor now. Today is day 1 of me actually peddling a client, and that's BetOnline. BetOnline is your number 1 source for all your sports betting needs this season, from baseball, golf, soccer, right to all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing. And my ad copy does not include Wimbledon. There's some tennis going on this morning if you like that. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE. It's spelled BLEAV for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online. The game starts here. Larry, How the hell are you doing, man? How's life before we get it going? The heat wave is finally tempering down a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
the heat broke finally, but yes, as a young man who grew up in the Sunset District in the fog,
yeah.
living in Walnut Creek, and just the heat. I mean, it's brutal. And I was up on at my brother's on the 4th of July. It was 109.
And that was a cool day for Sac. I was hearing it got up to like 115.
Yeah,
That's
it was
insane.
brutal.
That's Arizona, man.
Woo. Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, I like warm weather, right? I like sunny weather. I like, 80s, 85, 90, heck, 95. When it gets north of 98, it's time to stay indoors.
It does,
And
man.
over anything over 100 is like, come on, man. Seriously.
Disgusting. I was in Novato, where I was born the other day. 108 degrees in Nevada, in Marin County, California. You got spoiled growing up in the Sunset, man. I used to hate that weather. It's amazing what happens when you get older, right? Now it's like bring that all day, man. I would take that weather 24/7 now. But when I was young, I hated it. I'm guessing when you grew up, you didn't like it either, right?
I really didn't like it because it was always foggy, but it was interesting. Like as a little kid, we'd go to the Giants games and
Same candlestick.
And it was so incredible because like on a Saturday morning, and I can remember this so distinctly, the idea of, hey, let's go to the game. Well, it'd be like all foggy and kind of cold on the coast. And sure enough, by the time 105 rolled around and we were at Candlestick, it was sunny. It was beautiful. I think Candlestick got a bad rap because the nighttime weather there is awful. But the daytime weather is some of the sunniest weather in San Francisco. And I can't tell you, Cy, how many times I left my house in the fog only to spend a glorious afternoon in the sunshine there at Candlestick. So now at night, it was windy and brutal. And it was, I mean, I can remember a Giants-Mets game in 1985 where I was sitting in the upper deck and Doc Gooden was pitching. And it was just like, I just wanted to go home. I was just so freaking cold. But other than, we remember the cold, but it was actually Candlestick in the daytime was one of the best weather spots in the entire city.
Agreed. And it's funny, you and I are old enough to remember those days at Candlestick where the average attendance was like 8,000, 9,000, maybe even less.
Yeah.
But on the big games, I went to a lot
Weekends
of
and Dodgers, they drew. Weekends and Dodgers.
It wasn't just the Dodgers. You remember, like back in the day, like the Reds, for example, had a brief moment where they were relevant and really good. The Eric Davis days.
Yeah,
the
there were some good
there was
matchups.
a game where they played the Reds, and I don't know why that stadium filled up. Maybe it was late September and they were in the hunt. But Scott Garrell said, "I'm sorry for the Giants talk. We'll get to Warriors in just a second."
I was there that day.
So was I. That's fascinating. Where Scott
Garrell went 8 2/3, no hit.
That's exactly the game I'm talking about. But which was a phenomenal game. I've been to 2 games where pitchers came down to 1 out for a no-hitter and didn't get it. The other one was, I think Bob Welch of the A's did the same thing once. And I was at that game. But the reason why I bring that game up is because people in those packed days would sit in the upper deck in the bleachers. Those were like the worst seats imaginable. But you went, if it was a big, that's where I was sitting, man, because the place was sold out. And nowadays, you would never see a seat like that. Center field, top row, upper deck, those were asinine seats, yet that was a thing. I just respected Candlestick because those are true fans, man. Like, if you went to a Giants game at Candlestick, you went because you love the team, right? Do you have any sentiments or anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, I sat in the upper deck on opening day in '83 when Krueger got bombed by the Padres, and I guess he was hurt that day, but he gave up like 13 runs. But I was sitting out there, and it's like center field, upper reserves.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just an awful baseball seat, awful. I mean, I remember. I can remember when I was a little kid, my dad signed all of me and my brothers and sisters up for the Orange Crush Little Giants. And it was this awesome program they had. Basically, they would give you like a T-shirt that said Orange Crush on it. And you would get tickets to like weekend tickets to like 10 games or 11 games for like $20, like $25. And, you sat in the upper reserves. But I can remember 1979, I'm sitting in section 39, upper reserves. Willie Stargell hit a ball that went over my head deep into the upper reserves. I remember saying to I was crying because I was only like, 9 years old, 8, 9 years old. And I was saying to my brother, who was 5 years older, I'm like, because he went to the guy in the row right behind me. And my brother kept saying, "Oh, don't worry, Larry. You can get the next one. You'll get the next one."
The next one.
Right? Cy, I never saw a ball hit that far ever again. And it wasn't like, I was just a kid and I didn't realize it. I was literally sitting halfway up the red upper reserved in dead right field. Nobody from that point, 1979, through when that park closed 20 years later, ever hit a ball that up that far again. It never happened.
Your story, like that's a fascinating story to me because I don't remember ever seeing a home run hit to the upper deck.
Yeah.
Until
Will Clark did it. Will Clark did it.
Did he?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. That's crazy.
Darryl Strawberry hit one off the facade in center field.
As a member of the Giants or the Mets?
Yeah, as a member of the Giants.
Okay.
Chris Chambliss hit one into the upper deck.
Okay, so it's happened.
It was all left-handed hitters. I mean, Darrell Evans hit one or two into the upper deck.
Right.
Definitely Barry Bonds did it. But it was rare. And usually they went into the upper deck in the upper deck upper boxes, which were orange seats. But then there was a walkway, and then there was the upper reserves, which was even deeper. And Stargell hit it halfway up the upper reserves in 79 as an old man. And I was like, I wanted that ball. And my brother's like, you'll get the next one. Never again was a ball ever hit there.
This is your your screen is frozen, but we're still hearing you. I didn't realize that until Touch of Madness just mentioned that. And that could be an internet thing. Let's stay patient for
hold on.
Oh, is it on? You can fix that.
Yeah.
Well, real fast while you're figuring that out. Oh, there we go. You're back. I don't know what did you
so
do there,
it's like if you go away from the screen, and you're on a different screen, it's like it's after you've been away for 30 seconds, it will kind of go into silent mode or whatever frozen mode, and when it does that, then it freezes you on the screen. So I was I was looking at a different page because
gotcha.
I'm looking at an article about Lauri Markkanen and about Guru and Steiny yesterday talking about it. And Guru said, he was asked the question, would you trade Kuminga for Lauri Markkanen? And Guru said, in a Texas second.
I saw that.
And Steiny said no.
And Larry, what is a Texas second? First of all, I've never heard that expression until I saw that tweet.
I don't know.
I don't know what that means. Okay,
I'm a Californian.
I think that's asinine. Look, if it happens, it happens. But I think you and I are on the same page. Before we get into all the other players that could be out there for a trade, if the Lauri Markkanen thing does not work out, we can start with that. Like, would you trade Kuminga for Markkanen? You and I are on the same page, saying no. Correct? Like, I wouldn't.
I'm not trading Kuminga. I mean, I'm just trading Jonathan Kuminga at 21 at this juncture is stupid.
Yes.
Agreed. You don't know what he's going to be. He's quite a bit better than he was at 19. I mean, he's one of the 5 or 6 greatest athletes in the entire league, and he's improved dramatically from 19 to 21. And hell, if I'm trading him right now, I mean, I think there's a very good chance that Kuminga becomes a greater star than Markkanen ever will be.
Easily.
No, I'm not, and I'd rather go into another pick swap or another first round pick I'd rather throw more draft capital and keep Kuminga. There's really the Warriors have 4 guys that are part of their young core. It's Podziemski and Moses Moody. It's Trace Jackson Davis, and it's Kuminga. And as far as I'm concerned, everybody's got a price, but Kuminga and Trace Jackson Davis are the guys that I would absolutely I'd have to be totally wowed and floored by the offer to trade them. Otherwise, I'm not trading them. Now, Podziemski, we're talking about a 6'3" combo guard. Moody, we're talking about a nice shooting wing, but nothing spectacular. I mean, I feel like those guys are absolutely NBA starters and absolutely right away NBA rotation pieces, but they're not all-stars. Kuminga is an all-star. I think Trace Jackson Davis has all-star potential. So no, I'm not trading. I don't want to trade Trace Jackson Davis, and I don't want to trade Kuminga. I'll move all kinds of picks, and I'll move other players, but that's where I draw the line.
And here's the thing with Lauri Markkanen, just to add to that. I mean, and I feel awful for not mentioning this until now, folks. They're not booing; they're Krueger. I have to include that for every show we do. Okay, so Lauri Markkanen, real fast here. The most games. I just want to add this because for some context, because there are some people out there like Guru who think Lauri Markkanen is just a Magic's salve that's going to turn the Warriors into a contender. Maybe so if you don't give up Kuminga. But look, Lauri Markkanen has never played more than 68 games in a season, and that was his rookie year. You take that out, the most games he ever played was 66 2 years ago with the Jazz. Until he came to Utah, his highest scoring average per season was 18.7 points per game with the Bulls. Now, when he went to Utah, we saw this next level of his game emerge where he averaged 25.6 points per game 2 years ago, 23.2 last year. He's a 3-point shooting is in the 39% range. So he's a good player, but durability is a bit of a question. And look, man, if Lauri Markkanen was that good, the Utah Jazz would be a playoff contender. But even with Lauri Markkanen, the Utah Jazz were an awful team. So this is why, like, I want to lower expectations for Lauri Markkanen being like this next great thing that's going to turn the Warriors instantly into a contender. If you hold on to Kuminga, it's a possibility. If you're giving up the house and you think Lauri with Steph and Draymond and whatever else you're going to surround those guys with is going to magically become a contender, I got a bridge to sell you. That's where we stand. What are your thoughts on Lauri before we move on from this?
I like him, but he's not Larry Bird.
Yeah.
He's nice. Yeah. I like him. I liked him at Arizona. I like him. I think he's a good player. He can shoot it. He's basically a 40% 3-point shooter. He's a legit 7-footer. But Daniel Marshall put up good numbers on some really bad Warrior teams. There's going to be
yes, he did.
There's going to be, every team in the league is going to have somebody who puts up numbers. It worries me that that Markkanen's numbers didn't really escalate until he got on such a bad team. Exactly. And then it was like, that's a concern. But I like him, and I think he's a nice piece. I definitely don't think, though, that if they get Lauri Markkanen, they're somehow some title contender monster. They might be on the outside looking in, but they're not going to be a 1, a 2, or a 3 seed. It's more like if they can get Markkanen, there'd be more like a 4, 5, 6. Without Markkanen, they're more like an 8, 9, 10. That's how I see it. I mean, without a significant player, it doesn't have to be Markkanen, but without another significant addition, as is. If you look at Golden State right now and you say, okay, well, what are they? I would say they are about status quo from last year, 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, and then you have folks like Skino DeBoss in the chat who write, JK's a walking brick with no handle, which I couldn't disagree on more. And he also said the league locked down a Kuminga at the end of the year. Just to give you some stats that completely go against this ridiculous rhetoric, Jonathan Kuminga in the month of March, the last full season of the season, sorry to be redundant there, the last full month of the season, averaged 19.4 points per game. His 3-point shooting percentage went up to 35.7, shot 51% from the field, also averaged nearly 5 rebounds per game. I don't get it. There's some people out there that just, I guess, need to see Kuminga become an all-star before they're convinced, but
he's 21.
Yeah, and he's 21.
I mean, the bottom line is is Kuminga a superstar? No.
Not yet.
But Kuminga's got a body he's got the perfect NBA build. We've seen dramatic improvement. He looked like a guy with just an ugly shot when he came into the league. His shot today, by comparison, is completely smooth. I think in 2 years from now, I think it's reasonable to believe that he's going to be a pretty good shooter. So I think this last year, especially in the second half of the year, he consistently made smart basketball plays. The other talk is that, he's a solo player and he doesn't make anybody better and this and that. That's bullshit. At the end of the year, this guy was dribbling into open spaces, making nice bounce passes to Trace Jackson Davis, finding guys in the half court. I mean, Kuminga is a major talent. Major talent.
There is a reason, Larry, why he is easily the most valuable asset on this roster. Nearly every other team wants him for good reason because they see that how special he is, the potential that he could reach. And then Coop in the chat, I just want to address this real fast, writing that he doesn't think the Jazz would want Kuminga because of the upcoming extension that Kuminga is going to be eligible for. But the Jazz are going to have so much cap room. And in case you're unfamiliar, I'm speaking to Coop, every NBA team, this isn't like Major League Baseball. In the NBA, you have to fill 90% of the salary cap. So you can't, you can't go like the Oakland A's, who just basically put scraps together and spend virtually nothing. You have to spend money if you're an owner in the NBA. So the Jazz have to fill 90% of the cap with somebody. And that's why the extension, I don't think, would necessarily scare the Jazz away. I don't think that would be an issue there.
Well, guess what happens when you have really great young players? They are deserving of big contracts. So the bigger issue is if you don't have a player that's deserving of a contract. Yeah. Not, oh my God, you're going to trade for a player who's really good and then you're going to have to pay him. It's like, well, yeah, sorry.
I know.
Really good players get paid. So
and here's the other thing, Larry, what are your thoughts on the fact that, put yourself in the shoes of Danny Ainge, right? From his perspective, obviously he wants the house for Lauri Markkanen. I don't see, based off his previous run as a GM with the Celtics, I don't understand what the reasoning is for him keeping Lauri Markkanen. He's going to be 28 years old when he's due for his next contract. And he's in the final year of a contract right now where he's getting paid $18 million a season. So there's the possibility he might go. I know there's one report out there that says he wants to stay in Utah, but there's a million reports out there. I trust practically nothing at this point. I need to see actions before I actually believe something. But if you're Danny Ainge, explain the reasoning from your perspective of why he would hold on to Lauri like this. Like, it doesn't make sense to keep him, is what I'm trying to say. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just think he just wants to win the deal. I mean, he wants to win the deal. He wants to get an overwhelming number of picks. I mean, Danny Ainge is one of the reasons the Celtics won the title this year, because he made all those trades and moved all kinds of guys around and acquired all kinds of assets. And that's how you do it. That's why Sam Presti has built OKC into, an impressive young team, because they got a ton of assets and they got more coming. So he just wants to win the deal. I don't think he's like, I personally don't think he's like going to stick and stay with Markkanen, because I think he understands he's not winning a title with Markkanen. So I think Ainge has won enough rings to be about winning rings. And I think that he absolutely will move Markkanen, but he just wants his price and he wants to win the deal. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, for every draft that is going to be deep, I think there's going to be 5 drafts that were like this year's draft. In the next 10 years, let's say. I just think that there's going to be some premium drafts where there's some premium players. There always is. But for the most part, I think there's going to be a lot of drafts like this year where the entire thing from one right on down is a gigantic speculative type deal, where all these guys are, I think Boston got one of the best picks in the draft this year. They picked last. They took Baylor Shireman from Creighton, but the guy can flat out shoot the basketball. He's really, really skilled. But in this day and age, when everybody's coming out early and the draft is full of 17, 18-year-old Euros and international players and freshmen who aren't developed and just, have people saying you got to go pro, that there's just a lot of big time players that just get passed over. I mean, heck, after watching Zach Edey, Zach Edey a month ago was projected to go like 7th in round 2. And instead he went in the top 10.
The dude's 7'4" and can play. Like, why do you think that is?
Because he's ugly. Because he's an ugly player. His game is ugly. His everything about him he's like a stiff Herman Munster. Who the hell wants to watch that? There's nothing pretty about his game. He's got an ugly game. But he's 7'4" and skilled. And so he went top 10. And now in the summer league, I think he's showing that was a great pick. That was a great pick. He's very skilled and can do a lot of things.
Yeah, the Grizzlies.
So-
I agree with you. The Grizzlies, I believe, are who scored with Edey, and I thought that was a great pickup for him as well.
And look at Golden State. I mean, they got Podziemski last year at 19. They got Trace Jackson Davis at 57. I just mentioned that Shireman went in round 2, or went at the end of round 1 this year. So I mean, it's just that's the deal. I mean, the NBA draft in 1985. There were 20 good players in the NBA draft, and they went 1 through 18 and then like 24 and 26. Now there might be 10 good players in an NBA draft, but they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 18, 28, 42, 55. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
that's the way it is because everything's much more of a projection. And so anytime you mix in a projection like that, there's going to be mistakes made in the evaluation process. And I just think that we're in an era now where, you got to take a look at everybody and you got to really, and that's why, like, to me, this is when you want the great GM. This is when you want the guy. This is when you want the Jerry Wests, the guys who can sit there and go, you know what? I see greatness in somebody who's going in the second round. And it happens every year. It happens every year. I mean, the Warriors would not have had this dynasty. I'll go as far as to say this: as great as Steph Curry is, and he's great, and we talk about him a ton, the Warriors do not win any rings without hitting big in the second round.
Absolutely. No, you're right. Draymond Green, is the best example, but
Right.
And RIP to Jerry West, on an unrelated, well, sort of related note, but I think the Clippers, that was a huge hit. I don't mean to bring up mortality as a reason for personnel decisions and front office moves, but the Clippers relied on Jerry West's brain, and that's another loss for them, man. The Clippers, I think, are going to be on the decline after that. Totally random tangent there. And before we start getting into the list of names that I researched that could be out there, yeah, go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to add also as an incentive for Danny Ainge, in terms of trading Lauri Markkanen, and I think he's going to do it. I don't think Lauri Markkanen is going to stay with the Jazz. He wants Cooper Flagg like everyone else, man. That kid, God, when you have a draft where there's just an undisputed, a surefire number 1 pick like him, you're going to go for it if you have Danny Ainge's mentality. Any thoughts on that?
What thoughts on what? That the Warriors will go for it, or that
that the that Danny Ainge will not hold on to Lauri Markkanen because keeping him will diminish the odds of getting the number 1 pick to get Cooper Flagg. I mean, Cooper Flagg is what will turn around the Utah Jazz's fortunes. He'll turn almost any team's fortunes around. And
is he that good? I've been hearing a lot about him in the last 48 hours.
Dude, the kid can play,
yeah.
and
he's going to Duke, right?
He's going to Duke next year, but he's been hyped up for the last 2 years. And LeBron James was good because he's on the alternate team. Team USA is practicing with this alternate team that Brandon Podziemski's on. Trace Jackson Davis is on. Brandon Podziemski yesterday, by the way, clocked in the face
by
Joel Embiid's elbow.
Did he really, or was he flopping? Because I rewound that a bunch of times. I never really saw the harsh contact.
I like Stephen Curry drains this deep three. And then on the same play, I saw Embiid. It wasn't intentional, obviously, but I saw Embiid's elbow just go whack right to his head, and then he collapsed right after that. It did happen, but fascinating stuff. And when I think of alternate teams for the Olympics, I always think back to the '92 Dream Team because that team got beat by the alternates. I think like Grant Hill was on that team and a few others, and that woke up.
It was Weber. It was Weber and Jamal Mashburn and Bobby Hurley. And they ran the Dream Team off the floor, but Chuck Daly threw that game. Chuck Daly threw that game. Chuck Daly wanted to. He had no way to motivate that Dream Team. They were too great, and they didn't have any fear of losing. And he wanted them to have that fear of losing, and so they fell behind that select team. And he just sat Jordan. The rest of the time, and they wind up losing to the college kids.
Yeah.
Despite the fact they had Magic and Bird and David Robinson and Mailman and Mully and all, these guys lost. But then they came back 24 hours later and just put the beatdown of beatdowns on them. That's part of that as well. the dream team.
And
what an incredible, the greatest team of ever assembled.
Ever, but that's also part of what makes this team. And Larry, I don't know if you want to do this together or not. I'm going to be hosting a show after every men's Olympic game. I don't know if tomorrow's game is going to be included. I want to actually cover games that count. I don't know. I think tomorrow's like an exhibition, but
is it already started? Are we there? Or is it started?
Almost. Wow. Like I said, I think tomorrow's an exhibition, and then they go next week to England for some more they call them friendlies, and then it's Paris for the Olympics after that. But
yeah, I'll join you for those games. I mean, for those shows. I mean, maybe we'll get Frank Red in the house. Would love to get his thoughts.
Yeah,
but yeah, this team this year is amazing. I mean, look at this team with Bam.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like when you compare the '92 Dream Team. Side note: fourth leading scorer on that team, Chris Mullin, former Golden State Warriors legend. But which team do you like better? Because I do think this version could compete. I think they could at least keep up. Like, what are your thoughts in terms of comparing the two Dream Teams?
That team, the original Dream Team, was way, 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 way better. I mean, think about it. I mean, you had Michael and Scotty and
Charles,
you had Magic
Chuck,
and Bird and David Robinson and Patrick Ewing and just an awesome team, and then Leitner. They could have had Shaq on that team if they wanted him, but they chose Leitner instead, which was dubious.
Which is weird. I didn't like that.
But they also had John Stockton. They had Carl. Chris Mullin. I mean, they were stacked, and that team was basketball smarter than this team. I mean, that team made the extra pass. That team also had some age on it. That was an old Magic, an old.
So does this
Bird.
one though. I mean, this is an old LeBron, right? I mean, this is an older Steph.
Yeah. I mean, I think this team's amazing, but that team was more skilled in the half court.
And I want to give real fast Chuck Daly his due, because when we talk about the all-time great coaches, his name should be mentioned every time that conversation comes up. He was a phenomenal coach, and I just wanted to give him a tip of the cap.
I mean, and I know that he played golf in Monte Carlo with Jordan every day. Jordan supposedly played 36 holes of golf almost every day and still went out there and just lit up the world. Matt Brotherton says it was a bad version of Magic and a broken Larry Bird. This team wins in 6, maybe 7 in a 7-game series. I highly disagree with Larry on this one.
Highly.
Well,
he doesn't just disagree; he highly disagrees.
That's cool. That's fine. I mean, that's the beauty of sports. But, you just remember what you're saying. You're saying that the Dream Team would have lost. The greatest, by everybody's account, from Jerry Sloan to Jerry Colangelo to Coach K to Chuck Daly to all the players on the team and almost everybody who lived through that era, would argue that was the greatest basketball team ever assembled. And you're going to say that this team with Bam Adebayo and Steph and old LeBron would beat that team?
Old
no.
Kawhi. I mean, old KD. Kawhi Leonard is getting old. He's hobbling on one.
Almost every single one of the players on that team would have been the best player on this team. I mean, Karl Malone was an amazing player. Charles Barkley was an amazing player. We joke about Charles because Charles hasn't won any titles, and he's yucking it up on TNT. But I get the picture that a lot of the younger basketball fans don't realize what Charles Barkley was. Charles Barkley was incredible. Charles Barkley was totally dominating at 6'6", and Karl Malone was 6'9", 255 and ripped. That was Pippen. Pippen was smothering. Mully was one of the greatest shooters that the game's ever seen. Jordan is the greatest player the game's ever seen. Magic was absolutely, he was the leader of the Showtime Lakers, and he was old, but he was hardly done. He was still playing incredible basketball. And Bird, even though Bird had back problems, Bird was still lighting people ablaze. So, I mean, and there's all kinds of guys on that team that we haven't even mentioned yet. John Stockton's one of the greatest John Stockton's an incredible point guard.
One of the greatest ever. I mean, was Drexler
look at this year's team. I mean, how old's Steph? 35?
36. He's 36.
36. So you got 36-year-olds. So a team where the two best players are Steph and LeBron, and Steph's 36 and LeBron's 40, and they're going to beat the Dream Team. Come on, bro. Come on.
And I'm looking
Hakeem Olajuwon. Was Hakeem on that team? No.
The only blemish on
Was
that
he?
92 team is that they elected to include 2 amateur players. So you had Christian Leitner, or was it 1 or 2?
No, it
They
was
had,
just one. It was just
oh, it was
one.
1. Okay, Christian Leitner. Clyde Drexler was on that team as well. I'm looking
Yeah,
at the
I mean
roster right now.
Drexler. Yeah, I mean seriously, you had Drexler on that team. He was
Yeah.
just like a guy on that team. Was Olajuwon on the team? I don't think so.
No, because he was. I don't think he was.
He's from
Yeah,
Africa.
he represented like Nigeria, or I forgot what the country was, but yeah, I don't think.
But I mean,
no,
that was
he
an amazing. That Patrick Ewing. I mean, Patrick Ewing scored like 25 a game.
all-time big. Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about guys who had incredible. I mean, and that team was just, they were amazing. I don't know. We'll agree to disagree, Brotherton.
Yeah, and that's okay. And great 1765. I love that they bring this up, that John Stockton. This is a true story. He said this in an interview, that while the Dream Team was just swarmed in Europe, and Michael Jordan was a global superstar at this point already, John Stockton was walking around just unrecognized.
Oh no! There was a scene. I just watched this Dream Team show the other day because it was on the NBA channel. John Stockton. There was traffic in Barcelona, and he's like, "I'm tired of sitting on this bus." So him and his wife and his kids got out and started walking, and they see this girl who's got a Dream Team shirt on, right? And he goes up to her and he's like, "Oh, you're pretty fired up about the Dream Team." He's like, "Oh yes, I love the Dream Team. I absolutely love the Dream Team. We have the best team," and then blah blah blah. And his little boy, who must have been like 4 at the time, goes right up to her shirt and points to his dad, and he's like, "Daddy, Daddy." And the girl looks down at her shirt and then looks over at Stockton, and then she's like, "Oh, you're." Stockton was 6'2", 6'3". He was a normal size guy.
6'2", yeah.
She had no idea that John Stockton was on the Dream Team.
That's absolutely incredible. And Brotherton adding, and I don't agree with this at all, that Stephen Curry could not be guarded. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen are 2 of the greatest defenders in the history of this game. So Steph would not easily be getting those shots off.
Steph,
I agree with you, Larry.
Steph, you're telling me you could put Scottie Pippen or Jordan, 6'5" Jordan on Steph Curry?
6'6".
He'd snuff him out like a candle. I mean,
Agreed.
I love Steph Curry too. Steph Curry's an amazing talent. If you put a better athlete who's 6'6" on him, you're going to shut him down.
And some people in the chat are bringing up Isaiah Thomas, how he was basically blackballed by Michael Jordan, which is a true story.
Jordan had the leverage.
Yeah,
you got to remember, this was right on the heels of Isaiah walking off without shaking hands after getting eliminated by the Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals, and the people in basketball wrong. And Isaiah, he's part of the bad boy Pistons, and he wasn't tight with Jordan. Jordan took Chicago away from Isaiah. Isaiah was from Chicago, but as soon as Jordan showed up, the people of Chicago hated Isaiah. It's like Isaiah went from like Chicago's favorite son to persona non grata in 45 minutes. It's crazy.
Good call. Yeah, absolutely right.
And Rod Thorne promised Jordan that he needed Jordan to show up, because I'm sure there was tons of pressure from Nike and everybody else to have Jordan in those games. He was the biggest star in the world. And it's almost like you wouldn't even want to even have the Dream Team if Jordan couldn't have gone. And Jordan's demand, call it petty, call it whatever you want, that Isaiah wasn't on the team. And that was it.
And that goes to show again just how respected Chuck Daly was, because he was the coach of those Pistons teams. And even though Jordan had a personal issue with Isaiah Thomas, did not carry over to Daly. He was fine with Daly being the head coach. But yeah, there's an
animus there. They played golf every day in Monaco, supposedly. Exactly. Seriously, supposedly Chuck would schedule the Dream Team practices around Jordan's golfing schedule.
That's what I heard too.
And there's a great line from David Robinson in the Dream Team, retrospective or special or whatever you want to call it. And he's like, "Man, I played golf one day with Jordan, and man, I was dragging that night after playing 18 holes of golf in the daytime." He's like, "That guy was like the Energizer Bunny. He would play 36 holes a day and then show up with tons of energy and play at night and play 36 holes again the next day." I mean, Michael Jordan in the summer just immerses himself in golf. Always has.
Just stogies, golf,
Stogies, golf, gambling. Probably
He's probably betting thousands on every hole.
Oh yeah.
Jordan was something else. And I love the fact you brought up his energy levels because he rarely have ever missed games. It wasn't until it sucks that the younger generation, a lot of them, their only image of Jordan are those Wizards years, and he just was a shell of himself by then. It's unfortunate. Like, if that's all you remember of Jordan, please do not base any judgment of Jordan on those Washington teams. He was like, I mean, I know he's the same age as LeBron is now, but it was just a different story and a different individual. And
I mean, this Jordan LeBron thing, I mean, I get it. We all want to believe that we are living in the cutting edge era, right? Nobody wants to believe that the players they're watching today aren't as good as the players of yesteryear.
Yeah.
They don't want to. There's going to be constant pushback. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Willie Mays. Nobody wants to admit that the players that they're watching today were second rate. And I'm not saying that the players are second rate, but nobody wants to admit that there was a better era.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no doubt. I just saw a thing on Instagram of the starting lineup of the 71 All-Star game in baseball. It had Willie Mays leading off. It had like Hank Aaron hitting second. I think it was like Roberto Clemente hitting third. You had Joe Torre. You had Willie Stargell. You had all these incredible players. It's like, you know what? The Ray Ratto said it best in the Willie Mays hour-long retrospective on his life, and he said Willie Mays was the most talented. He was the best player of baseball's most talented era. And that's really true because there was, the game. Babe Ruth didn't play against the greatest black players, so he can't be the best. And Josh Gibson didn't play against the greatest white players of the day, so he didn't play against the best. The guys, the sport didn't integrate until the late 40s. Mays came along in that next group in the early 50s. That's where baseball had its greatest collection of talent, is in the 50s and early and 60s, where you had Mays and Aaron and Robinson and Clemente and all these guys playing at the same time. That was the greatest. That was baseball's most talented era, and Willie was the best player of that era, and Jordan was the best player of, I think, the most talented era of basketball, which is, in my mind, was the 80s and 90s. And so I in a lot of ways I see similarities between Mays and Michael.
I can't disagree with you there. Are we ready to talk about players that the Warriors could get?
Yeah, let's do it.
Ready to jump into it? That was a fun 40 plus minutes of just randomness. A dream team conversation. Anyways, first things first, before I even list off all the names that I wrote down, and I have to do this off my phone. I'm going to set it on my computer right there and read it off there. I actually found some free agents that are still available now. And I'm curious to know what your feedback is on any of these players, because they could be had for the veteran minimum. The Warriors chose to acquire Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson, aka Slow Mo, with their cap space, and they just sign in trades, and they passed up some of these names, which I thought was kind of crazy. Like, for example, I didn't realize that Jalen Smith signed just a 3-year, $27 million deal with the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, you're talking about the big man who from Maryland who can shoot it.
I thought, like, why would the Warriors not pursue someone like him? He brings size. He can still space the floor. He finally showed his potential last year when he was playing for the Pacers, and the Warriors thought Kyle Anderson brought more value than Jalen Smith. I thought that's kind of weird to me. I don't know.
I mean, they're a little different. I mean, I think Slow Mo is has a little bit more of a well-rounded floor game. I think Jalen Smith he's not even a 3-point shooter. I think he's a corner 3 guy. I mean, I think you could look at the numbers, but I think he's got a certain spots in the corners that he loves to shoot the ball from. Other than that, he doesn't give you a ton. He doesn't give you a ton in any other phase, but he's a nice face-up shooter in the corner. So, I mean, I think he's a nice fit if you want floor spacing, but some of the other he's a big man in name only. He's really got a small man's game.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, and his rebounding numbers were comparable to Kuminga's almost. But I don't know, I liked him. I thought it was weird
Yeah,
that
he
for the
can
amount of
shoot.
money that the Bulls spent on him, the Warriors could have had him as well. The Charlotte Hornets in the last couple days released two players. I don't know if you think the Warriors would be interested in either of them. Davis Bertans and then Alexei Pukazevsky, who is better known as Puko.
Yeah, I like them both. I mean, Bertans I've loved for a long time. He's one of the best pure shooters in basketball. His 3-point percentage, I think, dipped a little bit last year to under 40. But I mean, he's a 6'9", 6'10" small forward who can really shoot the ball. I like Bertans a lot. I mean, to me, he's just a pure shooter. And I don't know that the Warriors need another pure shooter because they do have Steph but Bertans I really, really like. As far as Pokashevsky, needs a dietitian. He needs to put on 15, 20 pounds more. He's already put on 15 or 20 pounds. He needs to put on 15 or 20 more pounds, but he is amazingly skilled. For a 6'11" guy to have the kind of handle and he's got great skills. He's a very skilled big guy who lacks body strength, but I think anybody who can get his strength up, and I think he's going to have a nice little run. Whatever age he was when he came into the league, he was really young. He looked like a guy that needed about 4 or 5 years of body development. He's now had about 3 of those years to develop the body. So I think whoever gets him right now, I think is going to get his best basketball.
When he's available.
I like him. I really like him a lot. He's very, very skilled.
So
I like Bertans a lot too. Bertans is not nearly as skilled, but he's an incredible shooter. So I like Bertans if you're looking for that perimeter shooter. And to me, I love it. I love a guy who can really shoot the basketball who's like 6'9" or taller. Because when you're 6'9" or taller and you can shoot the three, the space that you create is amazing because you really have to. You don't think about it, but we always think about closeouts because that's a big part of the NBA game. It is impossible to close out on a 6'9" guy, and really bother him. That's why when KD could just rise up over people and just knock down that face-up shot, you could never bother him. Well, I don't know that you can bother Bertans either because, you got he's going to get in the corner. He's going to get deep past the line, and you're going to have to really close out on him because he shoots it high. He's 6'9". So I like Bertans a ton as a shooter.
And people in the chat mentioning his defense is a liability. Understandable, but again, he does space the floor.
He's an offensive player.
And here are some other unrestricted free agents, at least to the best of my knowledge. This is off loose research, but these are names I found. Doug McDermott is reportedly still out there. I always thought he would be a fantastic fit with the Warriors. Jay Crowder is still available. Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, Harry Giles III. Josh Okogie is still out there. I know the Suns are trying to sign him back, but I think he would be phenomenal with the Warriors.
All right, let's go through some of these and one by one. Let's go shoot down your list, and I'll give you a quick thought on everyone.
Doug McDermott.
I just think he's a great shooter. He's always been a great shooter going back to college. He can't guard anybody. He's slow, and he's defensive liability, and all he really contributes is shooting.
All right, there we go.
I mean, he's a great shooter, but at this point, I think you might be able to get better. You might be able to do better.
I've always thought he's a high energy guy, and I feel like every time he's ever been on the other team playing the Warriors, he's burned them. And when those memories just stick in my head, but I don't disagree with you at all. Jay Crowder.
Jay Crowder is, really, really strong, physically intimidating, but he's also kind of, he's a small powerhouse. He's like 6'6" and, 235, and he's strong. At times, he's looked like a really good perimeter shooter, but I don't know how pure that shot is. I like him, but it has to be the right fit.
Danilo Gallinari.
How healthy is he? Because I know he's had some major injuries, but I really liked him. Yeah, I mean, he's 6'10". He's very skilled. I think he's got a knee problem. And I'm not sure how he's moving. If he's moving well, I like him a lot. I mean, he's very skilled. He's big. He's young. He's still relatively young. I mean, was he 30? I mean, I don't think he's not
Oh,
old.
Gallinari? No, Gallinari's like 36. So he's
Oh,
at the
is he
tail end of
old?
his career. Yeah, he's old.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't realize he was that old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a little too old and too broken down.
He is 6'10". He spaces the floor. Defensively, a major liability. He's out there, though. What about Mike Muscala, who's still incredible?
Another guy. He's another guy, corner 3 specialist. I mean, this guy, 7-footer who can shoot the corner 3. He's a big man who can shoot. There's no question. Now, what do you need Muscala for when you just drafted Quentin Post?
Good point. That's why. And then again, I'm not. None of these names are me advocating. It's just I'm just listing off.
No, you're just throwing
out there. And then again, the Josh Okogie thing. I can't believe he's still available. I would pounce on him if I'm another team. Harry Giles,
Okogie's super athletic. I mean, gets off the floor, 6'8", can improving perimeter shot. Very underrated athlete. I like Okogie.
And I want to
Giles.
Go ahead.
Giles has got a bad knee. Giles is was an amazing talent. I mean, he was thought to be a higher rated player than Chris Webber when they were in high school. Wow. Harry Giles is a crazy athlete, crazy talent, but he's got a bad knee. I think he's got tendonitis or some kind of chronic pain in that knee. So he's never really been able to fulfill his potential because he can never stay on the floor long enough to really develop as a player.
That's unfortunate. And then 2 bigs who played for the Kings last year are both available unless I missed something. Oh, it looks like Alex Len will re-sign with the Kings. So scratch
Alex Len re-sign.
What do you think about JaVale McGee back to the Warriors? I know him and Steve Kerr don't have a great relationship, so this is probably a pipe dream, but I loved him when he was with the team. I miss him. I'd love to have him back. What do you think?
Well, I like it. I mean, see, to me, if you're the Warriors and you've got, Steph, you're going to be decent from the 3-point line. And then what creates space? Well, making teams defend the 3-point line and the rim. And the one thing about JaVale is you got to defend the lob. So you got to defend the rim at all times against JaVale McGee. Now he is older, and I don't know that he's a really well-rounded player. But as far as just a lob finisher and floor spacer and a little bit of a rim protector, he's not bad. I mean, their big situation right now is they're going to have Quentin Post, Trace Jackson Davis, Draymond playing some 5.
Ugh.
And what else? Who else is there?
And you're missing. There's one other person.
Was Looney going to be on the team?
Well, I gotta get the Warriors roster on my screen. But we've covered this before on the show, and happily covering it again. The Warriors are incredibly deep at the 2-3 positions. When you start getting to the 4-5, it's thin. It's thin. Like you said, Draymond, Quentin Post, but I'm also hearing some stories that Quentin Post might not even be on the Warriors roster to start the season. He might be spending some time in Santa Cruz, which I hope is not the case. And then Kevon Looney is still on the roster too. So that's the other big that the Warriors.
And Looney's just beat up at this point. I mean, he's an old, whatever his age is, add 4 years onto it. And that's that's what he looks like.
And bringing up
28, he looks 33. I mean,
he's always looked older than he is.
Yeah,
but
he's just beat up. I mean, he's a totally different player than he was at UCLA. He's carved out a nice career. He's a favorite of Kerr's, that's for sure. But, at this point, it's like, instead of some teams, you're like, hey, get the coach a couple of his favorites. On this team, it's like, let's take some of his favorites away from him.
Opposite. 180 on that.
Like, you have to manage Kerr at this point.
If Kerr likes him, do not add him. And bringing up Looney real fast. So now we're going to get to all the players that could be available for the trade, because the bottom line.
Well, there's one more free agent that you haven't named that I think's the guy that I would absolutely go after.
Who? Go for it. Who?
Saddiq Bey.
Well, here's my pushback on that. I agree with you in the sense that I love him. I still am a little bummed out that the Warriors did not actually keep him in that 4-team trade that where he was briefly with the team and then went to Atlanta, and the Warriors got Gary Payton the second back, but he did have an ACL tear in March. So if you trade,
that's a concern. That's a concern. But the way guys come back from ACLs, I would say this. I like Sadiq Bey. He's got
do
good basketball IQ. He can play the 3. He can play the 4. He can shoot the ball. He can get others involved. He can play a small. He could play a small lineup power forward spot if you want to go small. I like, to me, any player, like you mentioned JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee's basketball IQ is not high. And to me, if you're going to play in the Warriors scheme of pace and space and ball movement, body movement, part of playing effectively off the ball is basketball IQ. You got to be a smart player to play for the Warriors. So they ask a lot of their players to play off the ball. I think you got to be really cerebral. You got to be a smart player. That's why I like Sadiq Bey for Golden State, because I think he's a really, really smart player.
And I totally
anybody
agree.
Who's just a runner, jumper, dunker. That's why I think a lot of people think that, Kerr was not a fan of Kuminga, because that's what he is. He's a runner, jumper. But you know what? He's shown that his basketball IQ has grown by leaps and bounds. And so now you've got a guy that's really both. He's one of the best athletes in the league, but he also has a really high basketball IQ and a desire to get better and play winning basketball. So I'm now a believer in the basketball IQ of Kuminga.
And just to add again, Sadiq Bey is probably not going to play this upcoming season. So down the road, I'm again 100% with you, because he's 6'8". He gives you size. He stretches the floor. I love him. But he's not going to play this season.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not going to play this season, that probably takes him out of the equation.
And we're going back to Kevon Looney, because ultimately, as we get into this list of all the 28 teams, not including Utah and the Warriors, obviously, who have some players on their roster that the Warriors could make a deal for. The Warriors roster as currently constructed, again, insanely deep with wings, very thin in the front court. And if you want to give Steph at least just a fighting chance this season, this cannot be the finished product. I don't see this current iteration of the Warriors making real noise this season. They got to make one more move, right? The players
you have to make one more move. It's got to be a great move, and it's got to be at a low cost. They need a move where they get a major talent added to their roster without major talent being subtracted from their roster.
Yes.
They can't make a move without subtracting significant talent. They're not going to, like, if they get Markkanen, but they move Kuminga, they're still not a title contender.
Yeah.
They're more like a 5 seed or a 6 seed. If they can get Markkanen without trading Kuminga, then I think they're more like a top 4 seed. And if things break right, they could be a title contender. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's kind of nuanced at this point.
And Brandon Katz keeps bringing up Paul George. He would have been a fantastic fit, but we 's not happening. It's
He's 34. I mean, that's another guy too. I mean, it's like he's very talented, but we've been talking about people have been dreaming on the Paul George potential forever. This guy gets hurt a lot. He's now 34. He's had glimpses of awesomeness, but I'm not sure that was the. I mean, I know they wanted him. I know they've tried to get him, but I don't know that was like some awesome solution. I don't think they were going to win.
You wouldn't have been as excited as a lot of other people would have been for the Paul George signing, and that's fine. I get it. I totally get it. But the bottom line, they need to make a move, like you said. It needs to be not a lateral move, but a move that's actually going to improve your roster substantially. And the likely pieces to be dealt, like the almost surefire players on this roster that should be moved: Andrew Wiggins, who's making 26-27 million this season; Kevon Looney, who's making $8 million this season; and then Gary Payton II, who's making $9 million this season. So, and those are the core pieces that the Warriors likely want to move on from. And with that money, you can get back a lot of players. I mean, that's in the NBA, the way it works is you got to trade out. Whatever you trade out, you got to get back 75% in terms of a match of salaries, whether it's above or below. So that's what the Warriors are playing with. Obviously, other teams are going to ask for Kuminga, Moody, Podziemski, all these other pieces. But that's the crux of a Warriors trade. Those are the fundamental pieces that will likely get moved.
I think this is all tied together. I think this is all tied together, to be honest. I think the Warriors are still going to try to go after, still want Markkanen, can't make the deal without moving Kuminga. Utah doesn't want any part of Wiggins. So they got to find a third team
Yes. Yeah.
and a contract that's probably pretty, underwhelming. Somebody you're gonna have to trade Kuminga for somebody who makes a shit ton of money that's not worth it, and then have that team who's divesting themselves of that player throw you either a future one or some twos or some draft capital. Then you can then turn and flip that draft capital to Utah in the Markkanen deal. I think that's what we're waiting on. I think they're looking for a place to move Wiggins, and yet Wiggins is damaged goods and nobody wants Wiggins. So you're going to have to take somebody, who's the guy who used to play for Denver, who's making $22 million a year now? Brown, is that his name? Bruce Brown?
The rookie, like the third-year guy, the young player?
The guy who played for Denver, who signed a big contract, and people were saying
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's now with Orlando?
I thought his name was Brown.
Oh, Bruce Brown, who's with Toronto.
Yeah, he makes 22 mil.
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, it's somebody like that. I mean, Bruce Brown's not worth 22 mil. So you might be able to get Toronto to throw you Bruce Brown for Wiggins and throw you some kind of pick in the mix there. And maybe if you could turn around and trade that pick, and include that pick in the deal for Markkanen, maybe you can get that done. I something like that. Wiggins for Bruce Brown.
Toronto's on my list. Why don't we get to it? Okay, I researched every team and
okay. I'm jumping ahead.
Just to see it. No, it's okay. It's okay. So we're gonna start with the Brooklyn Nets because they are in a full-blown rebuild, and they've got a few names on that roster. And I'm gonna list to you 4 of them. Again, none of these names indicate I want them. I'm just throwing out names that could be available in a trade. Some of these will move the needle. Some of these will make you cringe, but we'll list them anyways. Brooklyn has 4 names: Bojan Bogdanovic, Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson. That's the one I like the most. And then Ben Simmons, who's on an expiring deal. Anything stick out there?
I'm intrigued by all those guys. I mean, first of all, Dorian Finney-Smith's really good athlete, good defender, very athletic, long, versatile player, could do a lot of things like him. Cam Johnson, I loved him at Carolina, love him now. Same. He's a pure shooter. He's the pure shooter that Klay Thompson used to be. So you're replacing Klay now with Buddy Hield, but you could also get Cam Johnson. Now you get a little 2-for-1. I like that. He's a 6'8" player. He makes too much money considering his game's really only shooting. He's a marginal defender. He's marginal laterally, but he's an awesome shooter. And to me, Cam Johnson is I think you can win championships with Cam Johnson because he's that good of a shooter.
I would love Cam Johnson. Sorry.
So you get Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson. Who's the third?
Well, Bogdanovic is not. I just listed because
Bogdanovic is.
Yeah, I'm not saying pursue him, but he's there and he's available for trade.
This is Bojan, not Bogdan.
What did I say?
No. I'm just clarifying, right?
Bojan. Yeah, it's Bojan.
Yeah, it's Bojan. So Bojan is older, less hair. Good shooter, but body's kind of breaking down. I don't know. Don't love him at this juncture. I think he's overpaid, but he's a decent player. Nothing great. I think Simmons is super intriguing on the Warriors. I mean, Ben Simmons is I don't know what to say about him. He's lacks motivation. I've heard people say that he has no fire, that he's lazy. I don't think he's any of those things. I just think he's a young guy who's got $150 million in the bank. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I remember myself in my early 20s. If I had $150 million in the bank, you couldn't get me to do anything either. And that's where he's at. He won't work on his game because he's in his mind, it's not about, will he make it? He's already made it.
Yeah.
But he made it financially before he actually made it on the floor. And then because he made it financially before he made it on the floor, I wonder if he even cares about making it on the floor because he's already made it financially.
Yeah.
So some guys play for championships. Some guys play for W's. Some guys play for greenbacks. If he's a guy that plays the game for cash, then he's got no motivation. He's got all the cash in the world.
Yep.
So that's what I think we may be seeing with him. But I just would love to see on a team that has a little bit better culture, with some better shooters what it would look like if Ben Simmons was allowed to run the point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've thought about that a lot too. And look, the Warriors have shown they can take reclamation projects and turn them around. Andrew Wiggins is a perfect example of that. They got one phenomenal year out of him, better than what any other team could do. As I say that as they're trying to trade him, damn it, it's just disparaging him even more.
Someone says trade
right.
Wiggins for Ben Simmons. I mean, Wiggins makes 24 and Simmons makes 40. So you're going to have to, it would have to be Wiggins, Looney, Peyton, right? All for Simmons.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if Simmons, how would Simmons react as soon as Draymond Green puts a finger in his chest? I mean, is he gonna piss his pants and that's it?
You know what he's gonna do, Larry, if that happens?
Is he gonna quit?
You know what's gonna happen if Draymond Green did that?
Oh, my neck, my back, my neck and my back. Oh.
Yeah, that's what would happen. And he'd be
my concern, but I think Simmons is a ridiculous, amazing talent who's just hiding on a basketball floor because he can't shoot free throws, and he'd rather hide on a basketball floor than get in a gym in the summer and pound out, 250 free throws a day and get that free throw percentage to at least 65%. He just doesn't want to do it. What's his career free throw shooting?
Ben Simmons?
Yeah, 18.
I don't have his numbers in front of me. Let me get that real fast.
It's low.
But,
it's really low.
Yeah. He's not a shooter. Ben Simmons is not a shooter.
He's not a shooter, but he's a 6'10" point guard.
Exactly. So, and that's why I would think Kerr would love him from that aspect. He's shown clearly he's got a borderline fetish when it comes to players who can handle the ball better than most. And so I would think Simmons would fit in perfectly in that regard. His free throw shooting, by the way, I have it here, career 58.9%.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, attack the rim, try to jam everything, and if not, find Steph on the perimeter.
All right, let's move on from Brooklyn. If that's
I love Cam Johnson of that group.
I'm with you. So Cam Johnson is one name that sticks out in this so far.
Definitely.
The Toronto Raptors, a team that, again, if Andrew Wiggins is going to go anywhere and I think have a shot at kind of turning things around, it would be his home country of Canada, near where he's from, Toronto. So the Raptors have 4 players. You brought up Bruce Brown, who's making $22 million. They made that trade that got that player from Sacramento, who was a lights out 3-point shooter in Europe, and it just didn't really work out last year. But I don't know what you think about him, Sasha Vezenkov. He's now on the Kings, or now on the Raptors.
Yeah.
Kelly
don't like him. He's stiff.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then Kelly Olynyk and Jakob Poeltl. Those are the 4 names.
Don't like those guys either.
All right,
like those guys either. I mean, Olynyk with his headband and his shooting, and no. And Poeltl, no. I just don't. To me, another guy. I don't want to watch. It's supposed to be entertainment. I don't want to watch those guys. I don't mind watching, I guess, Olynyk just because he's got a little bit of a perimeter face-up game. Poeltl, though, is, just these little, righty lefty hook shots, and I don't know. Poeltl is just painful to watch.
And he makes a lot of money, man.
It does.
It is.
I think he's so overrated.
Yeah. So, all right. So Toronto has nothing that's attractive to you. The Chicago Bulls have one name that I looked at and thought to myself, why is he still on their roster? And I know he's a massive defensive liability, but he is 7 feet and he can shoot the ball. And that's Nikola Vucevic. Your thoughts?
Well, he's an all-star a couple of years ago. This guy's really good.
Correct.
This is a really good player. Who's just, he's not he's a perimeter shooter, but this guy really stretches the floor. And he's totally gettable. So yeah, I mean, Vucevic, I think is nice. He's healthy, played really well in Orlando. I don't know that he's ever really fit in Chicago, but yeah, I mean, he's a big man who can. I mean, if you like to space the floor and you want that stretch 5, I mean, he might be the best stretch 5 in the entire league.
Yeah. And again, if you can get him for Wiggins, why not? I don't know if the Bulls would do that, but
absolutely.
Now Cleveland has 2 names that really pop in terms of players that I like. One of them is Jared Allen. The other one is Dean Wade. I don't know if Dane Wade is available, Cleveland probably wouldn't trade him, but he's a big who stretches the floor. He always burns the Warriors every time they play him. Jared Allen, though, could very easily be available, and I could see Cleveland biting for a package of defensive-minded wings like Gary Payton II, like Wiggins. It's a logjam there in their front court in terms of having both him and the young guy, Evan Mobley. So Jared Allen's probably available. What are your thoughts there, man?
I mean, I like Jared Allen a lot.
Me too.
I really do. He's not really a offensive perimeter player. He's more of a finisher at the rim, but he's a shot blocker. He's a finisher. He's got great length. He's young. He can get up and down. I like Jared Allen. I'm skeptical whether they could get him for Wiggins, but I like him a lot.
Yeah,
he's not much of an offensive player. He's more of a defensive player, but you know what? They could use that.
You'd have to throw in a first-round pick, I'm guessing, to entice.
I mean, that's no problem. That's not a deal breaker. But I just wouldn't want to trade, multiple ones and swaps and all these different things. I don't think he's that good of a player, but I like him. He's more of a defensive player than an offensive player.
Absolutely. But he's a smart. Speaking of basketball IQ, he's high up on it.
He needs a change of scenery.
Agreed. Well, again, Cleveland has a logjam in the front court. You can't. If Cleveland wants to be successful, and I think they've come to realize this the last year, you can't have Mobley and Jared Allen on the team together because they both demand minutes and they both are the same thing. It's just two bigs who don't stretch the floor and it causes a logjam, man. So they got to move one of these guys. They're not getting rid of Mobley.
No,
so
if they would, I'd go after Mobley. I'd offer him everything. Mobley's amazing.
And Clifford Ray, a former Warriors great, who's been an assistant with the Cavaliers, he was on this program recently. And he mentioned he had nothing but praise for Jared Allen as an individual. Like when I brought up Jared Allen to the Warriors, his first thought was Cleveland does not want to get rid of him, but because they like him. But I mean, they got a logjam, they got to trade him, and so
they call Clifford Ray Rohan. He's always been a great big man coach. He really helped Donald Foyle, I know, in his career. But as Brandon Katz says, he says Cleveland's not trading Jared Allen for Wiggins.
Obviously.
I don't
Think
so.
That goes without saying. All right. Detroit has one player on the roster, and this individual has been on the trading block, I feel like, for 3 years now. Isaiah Stewart, known best for being bloody and trying to go after LeBron James. Not a bad player, though. Your thoughts?
Oh, he's tough as hell. I mean, this guy's really, really tough. I mean, he's a big guy. I mean, his game is kind of still developing, but he does a lot of good things. I would absolutely like to have Stewart. And Stewart would give them another tough guy up front.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah, because the Warriors need size. I hope they're not done with adding some toughness to the front court for rebounding, for defense. All right, so the Milwaukee Bucks have two pieces on their roster that I really like, and at least one of these I've heard repeatedly is available in the trade. Their center, who turns 36 next year, but still is playing at a high level, Brook Lopez, and then crazy eyes, Bobby Portis.
I mean, I love Bobby Portis. High energy, big man, played at Arkansas. Tough, can rebound, can defend. I like Bobby Portis.
Same.
Portis, I think would be a good fit for Golden State. I think he's active. He's he plays with a lot of energy. There's some toughness there. I like him. He'll bang bodies. I like Portis quite a bit. Who was the other guy?
Brook Lopez.
Yeah, Lopez I know is very skilled. The Lakers want him. There's other teams that want him. He's not my favorite, but another guy who's more effective. I mean, he's not a fun show to watch, but he's an effective player. He's got some skills and he can face up and he can block some shots and he can finish at the rim, but he's so mechanical that it's hard to want to root for a guy who's that mechanical.
He gives you size, but he stretches the floor. Yeah, so I don't know. So Brook Lopez doesn't excite you, right?
He wouldn't be my first choice. I mean, he's effective, but not my favorite.
Okay. Here's a name, moving on from Milwaukee. I don't know if he's available, but I'm going to throw it out there because the Minnesota Timberwolves are in a position where they're about to have to make some tough decisions pertaining to the second apron. They got some big deals they're going to have to give out. And one big deal currently on the roster is Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think it's it's out of the realm of possibility that they would trade him. It'd have to be the right pieces. Do you think it's possible? Should the Warriors be interested? Your thoughts, sir?
Well, this is another weird one. I don't know what the heck's. I'm not one of these people that follows the ins and outs of every single player in the league. But I was on 95.7 the game last year, and and we were talking about what the guys that Warriors ought to get, and I threw out Karl Anthony Towns, and it was like I threw out freaking Todd Fuller or something. It was like. It was like every single host was like, Karl Anthony Towns, what? It's like, what? So obviously a year ago, everybody thought Karl Anthony Towns was a puss. But you're talking about a 7-footer who's as skilled as any 7-footer in the league.
Yep.
So hell yes, I would want Karl Anthony Towns.
Same.
And shame on these people that were putting that down like it was just some idiocy. Like the idea of the Warriors getting Karl Anthony Towns, it's like there is no dumber idea. It's like you got to be kidding me. This guy's an enormous talent. And look at the year he had this year. Look at the year they had this year. Karl Anthony Towns, absolutely, if you could get him.
And it's amazing. Most of the people that chat are against the idea of Towns too. But
he obviously has no. He needs better PR because you're talking about a guy. You're talking about a guy. Yeah, I mean, he's a little soft, okay, but he's hardly the softest big man I've ever seen. I could probably think of 25 big men that are softer, and he's an enormous talent. But is he what? Is there something? Did he say something wrong to somebody, or is he?
No,
there's obviously some belief that Karl Anthony Towns is like, he's got a lot of haters for a guy who's just 7 feet and that skilled. I mean, why would anybody hate this guy?
Well, again, Jimmy Butler, I don't think helped with in terms of PR, right? Like Jimmy Butler threw him under the bus saying he's soft. He also whereas he didn't say the same thing about Wiggins. He's got that reputation. Yeah, soft is not a good. Charmin is not a good nickname to have if you're a professional athlete. With that said, if Minnesota is taking a deal for, let's say, I don't think they take Wiggins back, but you can entice him maybe with Looney, GP2, Moses Moody. I think you can entice him, man. I think it is a possibility, and I don't think you have to sacrifice the core important pieces of your roster. I know Moses Moody is someone we all love, but if it's possible, I'm with you, man. I don't think it hurts the Warriors. I think it helps them.
You're going to move Kuminga in that case. I mean, if you're getting Karl Anthony Towns, you're moving Kuminga. I don't think there's any way around that.
Yeah. If that's the case, I don't think I'd do it then. All right, if I'm the GM, but yeah. All right. Moving on. Now we go to the Portland Trailblazers, who have 4 names on the roster. I'm gonna present to you. Denny Avdia, who I don't know if he's going to be.
They just got him.
Yeah, they just got him. So I don't know if they're.
I don't know if they can trade him.
No, they can. You can fully trade him again, but I don't know if they would want to. DeAndre Ayton.
Now Avdia is coming off his career year. Yeah. When he came into the league, there was thoughts that he could not shoot the ball, and he's improved quite a bit. He's also a much better team player than he was when he came into the league. To me, he's coming off his best year. Now is the time to get a guy like Avdia. But I think Portland is keenly aware of that, and that's why they traded for him, and I don't think he's going anywhere.
And by the way, going back to Towns real fast, good point here brought up that we missed earlier from 808-9er that Draymond Green doesn't like him either. So that would be an issue if the team made a move for Karl Anthony Towns. But anyway.
Ironic that Draymond Green, who got himself kicked out of the finals and cost the Warriors a title, says that Cat disappears in the playoffs. I remember Draymond Green disappearing. I think he was at the Coliseum sitting in a suite with Bob Myers. Yeah.
So
the irony of that's awesome. That is awesome. That's rich for Draymond Green to be like, hey, this guy doesn't show up in the playoffs. So, coming from a guy who got himself kicked out of the playoffs and cost the team a title. Beautiful.
So the 4 players on Portland who will be available.
Wait a second. Brandon Katz. Green didn't cost the Warriors the title. Oh, okay. Thanks. Good. Got that out of the way. What? You're fucking high.
So 4 names. I mentioned Denny Avdia. Again, I don't know if he's going to be available. Like based off what you're saying, I agree. I don't think he is, but hypothetically, who knows? Denny Avdia, DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant, and Robert Williams III. Your thoughts?
All very intriguing on their own for their own reasons. I mean, Robert Williams in some ways is exactly the kind of big man they need. The right age, the right game, the right skill set. He's big, he's powerful, he can block shots, he can finish. He's got upside offensive potential, he can bang. I think Robert Williams, I mean, he makes a little bit too much money, but all bigs make too much money.
Mm-hmm.
So he's intriguing. The Grant is intriguing. He makes a ton of money. It would cost a lot. The only question about Grant is what's his game really? Where is he going to fit in? He's like so versatile, but I'm not sure exactly if he's a perfect fit on Golden State. Ayton is really intriguing from the standpoint of God knows he was a blue chipper not that long ago.
Number one
and
pick.
Now he's kind of his star is dimmed quite a bit. To me, that seems like a really talented player that might have another chapter or two, of success at Golden State. Who's the fourth guy?
Robert. The four names again were
Williams,
Avdia, DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant, and Robert Williams III. Yeah, Time Lord.
So Time
Lord.
Grant is the best player of the group, but it's going to cost you the most, and I don't know about his skill set if it fits. Avdia, I think is really a nice player, but he's kind of a small forward who doesn't shoot that great. So he's there's limits to his ability. Brandon Katz says Avdia is a good shooter. He wasn't a good shooter until this year. Look at the numbers. He really wasn't.
Brandon Katz he had some funny comments yesterday. So Portland again, and Portland has some pieces here. I like Robert Williams III personally. That's my favorite of pretty much every name out there so far, because I don't think he would cost the house. And Portland in this draft picked up Donovan Clingan, and the fact that you have him now, I mean, they've got the logjam. They got 3 7-footers on their team. I know Robert Williams is 6'10", but they've got 3 centers on this team, so they're going to move one of them. I think. I mean, if it would be sensible to do so. That's what I'm looking at as Plan B. If the Lauri Markkanen thing falls through, that's what I keep looking at is Portland. Any final thoughts on Portland before we move on?
Well, I mean, what's wrong with Ayton? What's the problem there?
He's a head case supposedly.
That's the thing. You got different guys. You got 4 intriguing guys there. You got Avdia, who I don't think they're going to move.
Yeah,
and he's just coming into his own. You got Robert Williams, who's I think in a lot of ways exactly the piece they're looking for, but he makes a lot of money. And I don't know about his body as far as is he beaten up or whatnot. And then you got Grant, who's a big talent. But is he a 4? Is he a 3?
He's like a 3. He's almost. I mean, in Steve Kerr's offense, or Ross, who's a 4, but he's much more of a 3. Yeah,
I don't know. Those are all interesting names for sure. All 4 of those names are interesting.
Well, the Atlanta Hawks have switching coasts. The Atlanta Hawks have 2 players that I looked at. One is really under the radar, but you love scouting players, so I think you're going to be familiar with this name, and that's EJ Liddell. Out of Ohio State. I really like this kid. His rookie year was non-existent because of a torn ACL, but he's back. That was 2 years ago. And then Clint Capella. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Capella's making a grip of cash, and not a huge fan of his game. Didn't love him in Houston. Just not a big fan. And who's the other guy again?
EJ Liddell.
EJ Liddell. EJ Liddell's 6'8", undersized power forward. I'd love to see how he moves after the injury, because he's kind of a power player, but he's also kind of an undersized power player. But he also has long arms, kind of like a Green. So even though he's listed at 6'8", he kind of plays bigger. Don't love him. Don't love him. Don't think I don't think Liddell's got a developed outside shot. I think he's more of a back to the basket, guy who can wreck shop in the college game, who's going to have harder time producing because of the length inside. So I'm not a Liddell fan as much.
And I'm just thinking a story here that the Atlanta Hawks reportedly were not interested in trading Clint Capella for Brandon Ingram.
Yeah,
If
I
that's
don't. I never. I
true-
saw that too. I couldn't believe that. I'm like, that's got to be a misprint.
Well, I got to say something to add to this too. Atlanta has quite possibly the most incompetent front office in the NBA. The Chicago Bulls are rivaling them, but
Well, how could they be incompetent? Didn't they hire that guy from NBC Sports
yes,
Bay Area?
yes, a former actor who has zero basketball
The
experience.
the
and
guy
he
who's
became
on the soap operas.
yes, and he became a Warriors broadcaster because his agent had the right connections. Yeah,
The days of the Hawks, the Atlanta Hawks lives, or whatever.
And Landry, their GM was it Landry Fields? Is that his name?
Stanford guy, Stanford
guy, and they were roommates in college. Speaking of nepotism, and so he decided to hire someone with no basketball experience as a scout and promoted him into the. It's absurd. So that's the Atlanta Hawks for you right there. That is one of the most absurd stories I've ever heard, and there's a lot of absurd stories in the NBA. Anyway, so Clint Capella, he turned 30 just recently. He's not super old, but very one-dimensional. He gives you defense, rebounding, virtually nothing offensively except for putbacks.
He's the kind of guy that wouldn't play for Kerr.
That's a good call too. The Kerr factor, obviously, a wild variable.
He just wouldn't play him
in all of this. Would you have any interest in the Charlotte Hornets Grant Williams, formerly of Boston and Dallas?
No, I mean he's a 6'8", set shooter who's too small to play power forward, too stiff and cumbersome to play small forward. He's not awful, but not one of my favorite players. I mean, he's just limited. He's a limited player at every spot. If he were 6'11", I'd like him a lot more. But he's 6'8".
Fair. And again, he's not
kind of ground bound.
Apparently not a popular person either, because his teammates don't seem to give any shit.
Great player at Tennessee, man. I remember him at Tennessee. He was a gunner at Tennessee.
Yeah, but like none of his teammates in Boston, none of his teammates in Dallas gave any shits about him leaving. So take that for what it's worth. What are your thoughts, man? This name was floated around a month ago. We're going to move down the coast to Miami. And then he decided he doesn't need a contract extension, and apparently all the trade talks died. But Jimmy Butler.
I mean, Jimmy Butler is going to makes $50 million, doesn't he?
But he's on the final year of his deal.
Right, but you have to trade $45 million worth of contracts to get him. I mean, you have to trade a lot.
You'd have to trade like 38 or something like that. I
like Jimmy Butler. I mean, he's a dog. He's super tough. He would help you compete for, a Western Conference Finals. But does it get you over the top? I don't think so. Well, not at this age. He's a little old.
Yeah, he is old. He's 34. He'll be 35 this year. Durability's been an issue for him.
Tons of money.
He makes tons of money again in the final year of his deal. So if you
not a marksman, not a real sharp shooter. He's just more of like he's a dog. He's tough, and he'd give them some toughness. I wouldn't mind watching him every night, but I don't think he's a fit.
Going up to the nation's capital, one player on the Wizards roster that has been floated around in trade rumors for years, Kyle Kuzma. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think that's all this talk about Markkanen. It's going to be Kuzma. Watch. They're going to, Lauri Markkanen and Brandon Ingram and Markkanen and Ingram and Ingram and Markkanen. Get ready for gigantic sweater Kyle Kuzma.
Which wouldn't be the worst thing. I don't
be the worst thing, but that's what's happening. I mean, if you want to say what's the move that's going to happen, that's it. That's it right there. They're going to get Kuzma. They're going to get Kuzma. Kuzma, with his, he's just, I don't know. There's something about Kuzma that's really like, I mean, he's really talented. I mean, he's 6'10". He's really talented. He might be able to fit on the Warriors and be really good. I don't want to put him down, but I mean, I don't know. It just seems like he just seems kind of like one of these guys that likes seeing himself on the front page of Us magazine or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He seems like the kind of guy who's like he's like into the LA scene and fashion, and he seems like basketball is just like one of the things that he does. I don't know. He doesn't seem like the hardcore competitor or winner, and that gigantic pink sweater that he was wearing was just god awful.
No, that image I blocked
One,
out of my
that
mind.
sweater that he wore is just
No,
maybe
that's
the
a bad
worst,
look. I remember that.
the
I
worst of
remember
all time.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm sure he
It was
regrets
like
it.
it was like the worst looking thing I've ever seen in my life.
Awful look. Man.
But I like him. I like him, and I like his game, and I like his age, and I like his health, and I think that's probably the guy they're going to get. If
And
you
look,
made
he
me
has-
wager on this, I would wager on Kyle Kuzma.
All right, so Kyle Kuzma would have the highest odds. You're saying
Yep.
of the
So if I got to bet, if you give me, all these guys we've talked about, literally every one of them. And you got Markkanen, and you got, Brandon Ingram, and you got, Levine, and you got, all these different people out there. Kyle Kuzma is the guy that I think they can acquire. I think they don't have to move Kuminga. I think, he's got some exciting talent. I mean, let's be honest about this. Kyle Kuzma, you catch him on the right night, you drive home going, man, Kyle Kuzma is freaking great. You catch him on the right night. You know what I mean? You catch him on the wrong night and you're like, damn, that was an ugly sweater. And what the hell's going on with that guy? But he's talented.
And just to add to what you're saying,
enormously talented.
He would play the 4 seamlessly. He has championship experience, which is not nothing. So
play in big markets. He can deal with media.
I wouldn't hate it. I would not hate it. Now, moving on.
That is the most intriguing name we've heard so far, because I'm hoping that the Warriors can get Ainge to move off of Markkanen, but there's no real impetus for that. Especially since Markkanen is from Finland and probably would sign there. I don't know that there's any real pressure. I think Ainge can sit there and be like, hey, if somebody wows us and offers us a Mikal Bridges type trade with five number ones and 2 pick swaps, then I'll do it if it's a slam dunk. But I don't think he's going to do it unless it's a slam dunk.
And going back to Utah real fast, Brandon Katz, who is on fire today in the chat, brings up the fact that the Utah Jazz also have John Collins on their roster, who's not
making $25 million a year.
Yeah, I'm looking at his contract right now. So because he has a big deal, he's underperforming for the amount of money he's making. He's not going to be a free agent until 2026. And he's pulling in about $26 million a season. He has a player option next year, which is almost certainly going to exercise for $26.5 million. So we're looking at 26, 27 as his free agency. My point is, would the Warriors taking Collins off Utah's books entice Utah to give up Lauri, or do you think that has no meaning to the transactions?
Say that again. What are you asking?
In other words, do you think
John Collins? I mean, John Collins is a 5, right? He's a power forward, but he's really a 5. I mean, at this point, he's got no perimeter game. He's a power dunking, jumping.
Well, my point, Larry, though, is do you think if Mike Dunleavy Jr. told Danny Ainge, we will take him off your contract, off your books as well, if you give us Lauri, does that help at all in terms of?
Well, okay, so that's 25 plus 17. So you're talking about, a lot of money.
42
Yeah, $42 million. So do you have $42 million to send back to them?
If you include Wiggins, yeah.
Well, Wiggins is 24, but where are you getting the rest?
Well, Wiggins, Looney, GP2 would easily match up. But I just
so
let's
talk about that again. It would be Wiggins, Looney, GP2 for John Collins and Lauri Markkanen.
And you probably Moody, probably Pajemski, all the first round picks. That's probably what the trade would look like. Yeah,
it's a lot. It's basically trading your whole team.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Lauri's not going to be cheap. Lauri's not going to be cheap.
I would try that, because I think Collins is the kind of player that, is he overpaid? Is he not worth the money that he's making? Yeah, he's not worth that money, but he still can play, and he's not going to embarrass you. He's a great athlete. He's a strong runner, jumper. I loved him in college. He's just not worth $25 million a year. So it's like he's kind of in that weird spot. But if you could grow the deal and get Markkanen by taking Collins, I would be willing to do that.
I would too. And I'm wondering if that has any relevance in all these holdups and the negotiations. Part of me is wondering if Utah, if Danny Ainge is telling Mike Dunleavy Jr., we'll give you Lauri for all the things you're offering, but you also got to take John Collins.
Is that a deal
who knows
breaker
if
for
that's
Joe?
holding it,
Is that a
right?
deal breaker for Joe? I wonder.
I don't know.
Because
That's
I mean,
what I'm wondering.
I'll say this:
I don't know.
Markkanen is a big man, but he's a perimeter big man. Collins is a big man, but he's an inside big man. So they
Correct.
actually do fit well together. It's not like they're not redundant parts by any stretch. We're talking about two different guys, two different skill sets. So I kind of like it. I think the Warriors. You could make an argument that the Warriors have a severe need for both of those guys.
Yep.
That they could use Collins and his ability to bang and rebound and deal with some of the bigger bodies in the lane, and Markkanen as that secondary, Robin to Steph Curry's Batman. He could be the second scorer and a guy who could do it from the perimeter, a big man. Yeah. So I like that. To me, of the deals we've mentioned, I think that would, the only question I would have is that going to screw up Joe's, repeater tax and all that kind of crap?
Well, it doesn't matter. Right now they're hard capped. So no matter what, they can't go over 179 million or 178, whatever it came out to. So
but you're talking about trading for an overpriced player. So I'm just kind of wondering what that does.
You are.
By the way, Luke Luna here's shooter can do it all. I hope you guys get nothing. Larry, you're coming off spoiled, picky. The players you said nah on makes me hope you miss the playoffs again.
Where is this? I can't find this comment.
Luke Luna at 144. Luke Luna, because I said nah to a couple players. I'm spoiled, picky. Yeah, I guess I am kind of picky because it's basketball and it has to fit. You know what I mean?
Here it is.
It's like and if you get the wrong guy and it's the wrong fit, it can set you back years. So you're right. I think Luke Luna. I think you're being right. I think you're right. I think I am very picky about, and I think the Warriors are going to be very picky too.
Why should? Well, let me and I'll ask this to Luke and to anyone else.
Brandon Katz says John Collins is not a 5. That's a bad take by Larry.
Whatever.
He absolutely is a 5.
But Luke, going back to Luke's comment,
he's a power forward, but he's a power forward with no perimeter game. So he essentially plays the equivalent of the 5. Collins is a 5.
It's semantics.
I'm a Warriors. He'd be a 5.
Positions are entirely constructs.
He's a non-shooter. I mean, how many non-shooters can you have?
Yes, he's a non-shooting big.
Yeah, he's a non-shooting big.
And Luke Luna, if we're playing, obviously this is a hypothetical discussion where we're playing the role of a GM. Why would you not want to be picky? Like, why would you not want to strive for the best possible options? I don't get why is that? Why are you criticizing going for the best? I don't get that at all. But anyways,
there's one interesting one here. Zal at 146 says, I like Marquise Bolden. If you've been watching the Summer League, there's a couple guys that actually, the Warriors Summer League is, dog meat. It's a bunch of nobodies. But, it's not like when they had Steph and Draymond and Clay playing Summer League. It's not that era. It's not that that year.
And Moody.
It's not that group. But the two guys that really impressed me so far, one is this guy Bolden, who's pretty big and can run the floor. He looks interesting. And then Ethan Thompson from Oregon State has been freaking awesome, man.
I've been hearing
he had
a lot
27, he had 22 and 11. I liked Ethan Thompson at Oregon State. I kind of ran into some Oregon State games over the last couple of years, and Ethan Thompson's a player, man. He absolutely can play basketball. I don't know if he's a G League guy, but based on what I've seen in this Summer League, maybe he's the two-way piece. Maybe he's the final two-way player. I don't know. Ethan Thompson ain't bad.
With Ethan Thompson, who's been putting up fantastic numbers in the limited amount of Summer League games we've seen so far, but he's undersized, he's 6'5", and he's already 25. So he doesn't exactly exude prospect, right? Chances, but I'm not hating on him. With that said, if he gets a two-way deal, great. All right, I got four more names here.
Somebody said that John Collins shoots the 3.
I've read that too. I don't know if that's true.
Not on any good freaking team.
No, he's not a shooter. He is not a shooter, period.
I'd love to know what his what is John Collins' percentage?
I'll look it up real fast here.
What is it? Who did he play for this year?
Utah
Hawks or Utah?
Yeah,
he got moved. Let's see. Let me see what John Collins 3.
John Collins, here I have his numbers right here. And again, John Collins was an exciting player when he was over in Atlanta. He was part of that
he got a big contract.
I'm sorry?
He got a big contract.
He got a big contract for that, and then he's been pretty much underperforming since then. So he's a career 35.8% 3-point shooter. Last year shot 37. Good, not great.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's better than I thought.
Great. And but it's a scoring that he's underwhelming at. He's averaging, like last year he averaged 15.1 points per game, 8.5 rebounds. If you're paying a guy $25 million, even though Wiggins makes the same and he got even less numbers, but you want more. You want more out of your.
I mean, I'm just looking at his game log at the end of the year. 30-11 against Houston, 18-5 against Spurs, 21-11 against Dallas, 25-6 against Houston, 16-6 against OKC. Those were his last 5 games. So I mean, that's not bad right there. There's some pretty good numbers there.
Again, if he has to come with Lauri Markkanen, great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Up. Yeah, totally.
Sign me up. I'm all in. And you're right. He would give you front court depth. He's not going to hurt your team. Anyway, 4 more names. Are you ready?
And he's actually pretty young still.
Yeah, he is.
John Collins is only 26.
Correct. Yeah.
How about that? I mean, how many years has this guy been in the league? Wait a second. What was he, 12 when he entered the league? He was a rookie in the 17-18. So he was under 20.
And he was great in that one run where Atlanta went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2020, 2021, whatever that was. He was a part of that. That's how he got the big deal. And then, but for the money, he's underwhelming a little bit.
He averaged 21 and 10 in 2019, 2020, and that got him the deal.
I forgot to mention this too. Sean Dillon is absolutely right. Paul Reed is currently available as an unrestricted free agent, which is wild. I don't know why Philly. Like, why did Philly waive him? That part makes no sense to me. If someone in the chat,
it was a cap thing. It was a cap thing. I just read about this. I love Paul Reed at DePaul. This is the kid who played at DePaul. He's 6'10". He can block shots. He's got athleticism for days. Paul Reed would be a great addition. He played for the Sixers this last year, right?
Correct. Yeah.
He's been a Sixer his whole career. I love this guy. I really do. I think Reed is really, really an interesting player. He's big. He's got skills. I like him. I really do. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's second round pick. He was the 58th pick overall in the 2020 draft. Played collegiately at DePaul. He's got a nice little face-up game. He's a 31% 3-point shooter, so he's not really a 3-point shooter.
Well, that's not his game. It's never been. Like, if you're getting Paul Reed, you're getting him for size, rebounding.
But but he gives you legitimate. I mean, what is he? 6'10", 250, something like that.
I thought he was 7. Maybe he is. Let me look.
He's a 70% foul shooter,
which means he can shoot. He's a decent shooter. He's not awful.
He's
only
not a
25.
He's young. He's young. Yeah. That would be a sleeper pickup to an ascending player. I like that one a lot.
I'm trying to see his dimensions. Maybe he's smaller than I thought he was. No,
he's every bit of 6'9", 6'10", but he's got long arms. He's nice. I mean, I liked him in the draft. I thought he was really good. They list him as a small forward, though. I don't know if he's a small forward.
No, ESPN does. He's listed as 6'9". He's not a small forward. Dude.
He's a power. He's an inside player.
Yeah, he's a banger down low. All right, you ready?
He almost averaged he's almost averaged a block per game, by the way, in his career. So he also gives you a little bit of a shot blocking element. So I like Paul Reed, and he would be very cheap, I would imagine.
By the way, Robert Phoenix in the chat brings up Christian Wood.
He sat on the Laker bench this year.
Yeah,
I love Christian Wood. I mean, that would be another great one.
I would too. I thought he was going back to LA though, but if he's available, you're right. That's another name that they should at least explore. I'll
give you another one. I think the Lakers are going to re-sign him, but Jackson Hayes is intriguing as hell to me.
He already signed back. He's already back. Okay. Yeah. He would be a good big. All right. You ready for the last 4 teams?
Yeah.
I'm going to save the best for last. So the San Antonio Spurs have 2 names: Zach Collins and Harrison Barnes.
I mean, Harrison Barnes would be popular with Steph. I don't know if it would be popular with Draymond. And I don't,
Draymond doesn't have the beef. Harrison has the beef with Draymond. So I think Draymond would do it.
Well, but I mean, I don't know how well they would get along, just period.
All right.
I love Harrison Barnes. I mean, Harrison Barnes follows me on Twitter.
Oh, well, that's
Harrison
cool.
Barnes and I go back. I mean, Gary and I had him in studio when he first was drafted, and we had him and his little sister, and they went to a Giants game, and they came in studio, and I mean, one of the best dudes I've ever met. I mean, he's just, he's got two great nicknames. They call him the Black Falcon or the Senator.
The Senator, yeah.
I love when Jim Barnett would call him the Senator.
Yeah, same.
He's just a class act, man. He's just a class
Smooth
act.
talking.
HB. I would gladly take back.
And here's the thing.
Him. I love him as a guy.
He's playing the 4. If you get him back, he's playing power forward, man. That's where he would be at.
And
he would not be a wing guy.
He's we saw. I mean, if you're going to lean on him to be your offensive driving force in a playoff game, you're going to go home.
Yeah,
but you know what? You're also going to love this player, and he can do a lot. And he can play multiple positions, and he can guard multiple positions, and he is a terrific locker room guy. I absolutely would love HB. Collins is the kind of guy that just has a face that looks like he needs to be beat up.
Yeah, he looks like an asshole. He does. He
looks like the kind of guy you want to punch out.
Well, and him and the Warriors have not had the greatest of exchanges when they played. I mean, I always think back to the Portland years where, like, it seemed like every Warriors player wanted to just punch him in the face, just like you said. But he might be available.
College. Where did Collins play collegiate?
I don't know. Good question. I'll look it up right now. I'll look it up right now because I have zero clue in terms of where he played. Zach Collins. I still don't know where he played. Oh, there it is. He played college at Gonzaga. Good call.
Yeah,
Bravo.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's talented, but no, I'm not a Zach Collins guy. But I would take HB. I would absolutely take HB.
And the price would have to be minimal. Like, you're not giving up the farm for Harrison Barnes, but he could be available in a trade. 3 more teams to go, and we've gone through the whole thing. We're going to go to New Orleans, one of the greatest cities in the world, in this guy's opinion. 2 players. One is Brandon Ingram, who I don't think will be going to the Warriors for the simple reason that he played for Team USA last summer and fell out of favor when it came to Steve Kerr's rotation. So I don't see how the Warriors would then trade for him. And then the wild card, his name comes up a lot. I don't know if he's available. I would love him on the Warriors, Zion Williamson. What do you think, Larry?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, Zion's box office. So he would put butts in the seats.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to pack the house, go get Zion. I mean, yes. What would you have to trade to get Zion?
I don't know. That's a good question. That might just be a fantasy.
I think this is one of the best young teams in basketball that nobody talks about.
Yeah, hell yeah, New Orleans. Yes,
this team is really, really good. They just picked up DeJounte Murray. They have CJ McCollum. You still have Brandon Ingram. You got Zion Williamson.
Sorry to interrupt you. Going back to the Hawks and their incompetent front office. How the hell do you give up DeJounte Murray for nothing? Like, did you see the haul? Did you see that trade? I gotta look that up again because it was ridiculous. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
I just love this team. I mean, Yves Missi, the big man they just drafted, I like him. Jose Alvarado is a really good young guard. To me, one of my favorite players, and the guy that, if you remember, if you followed me at the time, I was the guy yelling and screaming in the Kuminga draft for the Warriors to draft Trey Murphy III.
Oh,
and instead they went with. They wanted Duarte. He went 1 pick in front, and they went with Moses Moody. But I think Murphy, if I'm not mistaken,
he's awesome. He's going to be a great player.
He went 17th. Yeah, he was the 17th pick, and I loved him at Virginia. You're talking about a guy who's 6'9", 2 guard with unbelievable shooting. This is a great shooter. I mean, and this is the guy, to me, I wanted this guy on the Warriors badly. And if the Warriors had done what I had wanted them to do, this guy would be a rotation player for them. They might be in a much better spot right now.
Who would you have preferred, though, him or Sengun? Because you like both of those players. Who would you have
I like them both. I mean, they're totally different players. They're totally different players. This guy shot 40.6% from 3 1 year. He's a career 39% three-point shooter, and he made 90%. He's already had a year. In the 2022-2023 season, Trey Murphy shot 40%, 41% from 3, 91% from the foul line.
Oof.
6'9", 2-guard, small forward. I mean, he's a terrific player. So I just think I think they're. I mean, and they got a few really underrated players, and he's one of them. But I also love Jordan Hawkins, from Connecticut.
He's not available though.
He's
phenomenal.
another guy who can shoot it.
Yeah.
I love Herb Jones, very underrated player. Alvarado's really underrated. McCollum's underrated. Murray's, Murray didn't fit with Trey, but Murray's a hell of a player.
Mm-hmm.
They just went and drafted Messi. I like New Orleans. If I could get Trey Murphy, I would want him.
They're going to be good this year. And again, that trade for DeJounte Murray, this is who New Orleans gave up to get DeJounte Murray. They traded Dyson Daniels, EJ Liddell, Larry Nance, Cody Zeller, and 2 future first-round picks. None of those players are going to be in the game in 3 years, except for maybe EJ Liddell, who we talked about earlier.
Dyson Daniels is a talented guy, for sure. Dyson Daniels is talented. I'll say this.
Incredible.
There's a name right there that I kind of like. I like Larry Nance Jr.
Ooh, I do too. He's always been a pest when the Warriors played any team he's on. High energy guy, can rebound, can defend. If the price ain't high, I'm all, sign me up. Did not.
Larry Nance Jr. is a smart player and a really talented player.
Yeah.
Now he makes a grip of cash. I think he makes $10 million. But we were talking about Atlanta before. I would gladly take Larry Nance, who's 31, away from Atlanta. If you wanted to make a deal with Atlanta somehow, I love Okongwu. I love Larry Nance. Those are the two guys.
Okongwu's going anywhere. I don't think.
I like Bogdanovich. I would take Bogdanovich and Larry Nance.
Yeah, I don't think Bogdanovich is moving either. That's why I would have mentioned him, but I don't think he's on the market.
Yeah.
Atlanta likes him, but yeah. Okay,
I would trade. Would you trade them Wiggins for Larry Nance and something?
Easily.
Yeah, Wiggins makes a lot more, so you'd have to have Nance and something.
I would easily do that.
Yeah.
All right, and then 2 more teams to go. The Memphis Grizzlies have one player who I know you love, Santi Aldama.
Yes.
What do you think?
I love him, and he's their 5th string center.
Yeah. That's why
they have Zach Edey now. They have Jaren Jackson. You still got Brandon Clark there. Yeah, Santi Aldama is exactly the piece that the Warriors need. He is a absolute marksman, big man, 7 feet, played for Loyola in Maryland. He's only 23.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to like about Santi Aldama. He shot, 35% from 3. So it's not the highest percentage ever, but he's shot as high as 75% from the line. I think there's upside potential to get that to the mid to high 30s. Average 10 points a game this year, almost 11 for Memphis. Yeah, I like Santi Aldama. Yeah, I think he's a really underrated player. I like a lot of guys in this team. I like Marcus Smart. Love Jaren Jackson.
But they're not trading them. But,
I love Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark's another underrated player, I think,
who hasn't played in 2 years because of an Achilles tear. But I think he's coming back this season. But
Aldama would be nice, and you may be able to get Aldama for nothing. Now that they're enamored with Zach Edey and you've got Jaren Jackson there,
that's why I brought him up. That's why I brought him up.
You might be able to get Santi Aldama for nothing. I bet you. What does Santi Aldama even make? $1 million a year? He doesn't make anything.
I don't
think he makes much.
Give me 1 second here. Yeah, he's young, so I think he's still on his rookie deal. So Santi Aldama, he made $2.5 million last year. So he's cheap. But that also means
that's pretty good.
But that also means Memphis will likely not deal him. But especially when you consider the fact that they have his rights for next season, so he'd be a restricted free agent. So I literally just shot my own argument down because he's cheap. But
give you an example. What if you could get Santi Aldama and Marcus Smart? Marcus Smart makes 18.
You love him. I know you're all up on the Marcus.
Marcus Smart is one of those guys that forget his stats. He's just a winner. He's just a winner. I don't know what even position he plays. He's just a winner.
1 or 2, but they already got
Deion. They already got 6'3". He's just a 6'3" winner.
D'Anthony Melton makes him redundant though, but I wouldn't hate it. You
could make it. You could go Marcus Smart. You could go Wiggins there for Marcus Smart, Zaire Williams, and Salty Aldama.
I would love Zaire Williams. I don't think they would trade him, but I would like that too.
Yeah.
And I got one more team for you.
Okay.
If you're ready for this. And this is I bring this name up because when he got injured last year, his team actually did better. And it makes a lot of people wonder if he's going to be on the trade market. I know you love him. I brought his name up before. Alperen Sengun of the Houston Rockets. I think you can pry him away.
Really?
I think you can pry him away because he got hurt last year. And the moment he got hurt, their former number 2 pick, the shooting guard, what is it? Jalen Green?
Jalen Green.
Lit up. And finally, he became the focal point, and it paid off. And so there's been some discussion that maybe the Rockets would move on from Sengun. And if the Warriors approach him with the right price, you might have him.
Wow. I mean, well, that's the guy. I mean, that's the guy. I mean, the guy averaged 21 and 9. I love this guy in the draft. I was screaming and yelling for him at the time.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
You know, I think I've lost my true calling. I probably should have been a basketball scout because, I mean, seriously, I mean, I can identify these guys so far in advance. I saw this guy and I was like, wow. Now this guy has got a little bit of Kevin McHale to his game. He's a back to the basket 80s throwback with drop steps and everything, you know, all kinds of up and under and drop steps and, you know, left hand, right hand. I mean, he's just he's an old school 1980s big man. He's 6'11", about 250. Yeah. 21 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Now he's not a shot blocker, per se. He's really not much of he's kind of a ground bound guy, but he understands position. I mean, what is he, 21? He's got the game of like a 40-year-old.
Correct. He's super young. He is 21.
Super young, super smart. You think he's gettable? I don't.
Well, first of all, he turns 22, but that's not a big deal this month. I think he's gettable if you have to make a legitimate offer. But as I mentioned before, there's chatter because when he was out, they played better. The ball moved faster. They were better defensively. And they kind of came to the real, because they have another big on the roster too.
They got Steven Adams. They got Jabari Smith.
Exactly. So they've got a really busy front court, especially with the Steven Adams acquisition. So there's been discussion, and Reggie Bullock is also on the team. And I know he's only 6'6", but he plays like a power forward. They got Jeff Green on the team. So they got a lot of size already, man.
Steven Adams, Landale. They got Landale.
Did Jocelyn become a free agent, or they still have him too, right? If I'm not
they got
mistaken.
him. He's on their roster.
So they've got a massively busy front court. They could afford to lose one of those guys.
Well, so Sengun would be incredible.
Yeah, you'd have to give him realistically, your 2 draft picks would be gone. But whatever you're offering for Lauri Markkanen, I think there's a shot you can get Sengun.
Well, they're totally different players, but I mean, both really intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Wine Sipping Cowboy in the chat mentions Walker Kessler. I forgot to bring him up too. He is supposedly available in trade, but I feel like
my favorite.
Not your favorite, yeah. And I feel like the Warriors already trying to get Lauri Markkanen, so I don't know how that would pivot. I just don't see that working out. It might. I don't know, but I don't think so. And that's it, man. Is
Trey Lyles going to get dealt out of Sacramento or Herder?
No. He just signed an extension, I think, last year, and I know the Kings like him. I would not see that happening. Who knows? I would love him on the Warriors, but I don't know. Maybe
you don't see it.
And I'm tapped out. I'm done. That's it. We've been going for 2 hours. Which is incredible.
Rui Hachimura, maybe Jared Vanderbilt.
For who?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm thinking Wiggins, of course.
I mean, I would love that. Sign me up.
Who do you think wants Wiggins? Because there was some talk that Indiana wanted Wiggins.
I would think if anybody would take a flyer on him, I'm thinking Portland. I'm thinking Toronto. I don't know if Cleveland would take a swing at him, but he has no value, man. It's crazy. He is like who would but I do think it's weird though that the Bulls supposedly were willing to trade Zach LaVine for him, and I guess the Warriors said no to that. Who knows how much of that is true, but he's toxic. Yeah,
maybe the best deal in this mix would be something along the lines of maybe like Robert Williams, maybe Wiggins to Portland for Robert Williams and Matisse Thybulle, something like that.
Sign me up.
I mean, those guys make combined $23 million, so that would work. Tybulle's a 27-year-old swingman who plays D. Williams is a 26-year-old, 6'9", 250-pound center who I think would be kind of a nice fit with Golden State. To me, that's a nice trade. Thybulle and Williams for Wiggins. But yeah, Wiggins is one of those guys that you're probably going to have to find somebody who makes too much money. Somebody who makes too much money and flip them for Wiggins. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's probably like, who's got Rozier right now?
Well, Terry Rozier, I think might be a free agent. Let me look it up. I think he was with the Hornets,
no, I thought
right?
he was making big money. He was with the Hornets, but I'm not seeing him on their roster, so he must be a free agent.
Let me see real fast. Terry Rozier currently. Oh, he's with Miami? Did they pick? Yeah, he's with the Heat. No, he's with the Heat right now. He's making 25 million. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, he makes so much money.
Yeah.
He's just that. We'll talk about a bad contract. Maybe you could get Rozier and a pick, something like that. I mean, you're not going to get an overwhelming, I'll say this after watching Miami play the Warriors in the Summer League, I'd take that Indiana 7-footer they have.
Which one?
Khalil Ware and Rozier.
Yeah.
I'd take that. Absolutely. Wouldn't think twice.
We'll see what happens, Larry. We'll see what happens. They need to do something though. This can't be the finished product.
If it is, they're going to be a 6 seed, a 7 seed.
You think they make the playoffs in the current?
Well,
form?
I think there's a chance they make the playoffs. You got to remember they missed Draymond Green last year for a lot of time.
Yeah,
and they lost a lot of close games.
They did.
I don't know if I could see them. I mean, it depends what the West looks like, of course, but I could see them anywhere 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in that range. But they're not really a contender unless they can somehow add a significant player and not have a great player walk out the door.
My prediction, and first of all, Kurt Porter early in the show, we talked about Cam Johnson. Larry and I both wholeheartedly are interested in him if that's.
I mean, what a great shooter he is. I mean, he might be one of the best pure shooters in the game.
Yeah, but my prediction, Larry, if the Warriors make no more moves and this is the actual team that they roll out next year, I don't think they crack 40 wins. I think they're cooked. I don't see Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton being the solution to this team, unless Jonathan Kuminga and Podziemski take a drastic leap, and that's possible. But yeah, I'm not exactly raving about this roster as is. They got to make another move. They got to get Wiggins off this.
Come on. I mean, it's the most underwhelming offseason of all time. You've gone with Lindy Waters III, Quentin Post, Buddy Hield, Slow Mo, and D'Anthony Melton coming off of injury. I mean, really? You look at the other teams in the West and you see how loaded they are and how talented they are.
That's a good. Kurt Porter brings up a good name. I missed his name. I mentioned
Robert
some
Covington for free.
For vet minimums, sign me up, man. Let me look him up real fast to see if he's actually available. But that would not be the worst move in the world for a veteran minimum contract. Let me see.
Eric Epperson says Lauri, Markkanen, and Collins from the Jazz makes lots of sense.
Yeah,
I think so too. And you know what? I think that the Warriors might be the perfect team to make that kind of trade.
Agreed.
One, because I think that if these other teams that want Markkanen, I guarantee you they want no part of Collins. I guarantee you. Every single one of these teams that wants Markkanen does not want Collins. But the Warriors, because of their need up front for a big man, John Collins, in a lot of ways, could be very useful in the Warriors. I mean, especially when you look at, who cares what he makes, right? I mean, I'm not paying him. And That's the downside of his game, is what he makes. But his strength, his power, his ability to run the floor and finish and defend, I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And plus, you're getting a big man in Markkanen who you're going to draw other big men away from the hoop. He's a stretch 5, stretch 4, and Collins is an inside player. So in a lot of ways, they fit perfectly playing together. And I just think Collins could be really nice next. I mean, you put Collins next to a firebrand like Draymond Green, and I think Collins would play with more fire. And if Collins plays with more fire, you've got something, because that's what Collins lacks. Is he's kind of been paid a bit grip of cash, and he doesn't play with tremendous fire. And you know what I'm saying? He's just kind of he's kind of drifts. You put him on a team with a clear focus and an intense leader like Green, and I think he could really, give the Warriors a lot of good minutes. And he would be the way for you to get to separate your bid for Markkanen from other teams' bid for Markkanen, because the other teams are not going to they're not going to take John Collins. But if you're willing to take John Collins, that might be the difference in getting Markkanen. That might be the best path to Markkanen, is just being willing to take Collins. And I like Collins on the Warriors. I think that would be a good fit.
Same. Wholeheartedly agree. And very curious to see what happens. Who knows if the John Collins part of this is at least a variable in the holdup. Maybe Danny Ainge is just holding tight. Who knows? But the Warriors got to do something, man.
I mean, I'm sure Danny Ainge wants, 4 number ones. I mean, it came out that he wanted a Mikal Bridges type deal. Well, they got 5 number ones and 3 pick swaps.
But they're different. It's different situations. I mean, Mikal Bridges is going to sign a long-term deal with New York. It's, and not to mention if you're the Warriors offering Moody, let's say you're offering Podziemski, those are first-round picks. I mean, it depends then on whether or not Danny Ainge values them. By the way, side note, I think it's a stretch to call this breaking news, but Paul Reed has signed with the Detroit Pistons. 3 years, $24 million.
Then one other concept that we haven't talked about here, there's a good article out by Andrew Buller Russ online, and it's entitled 10 Teams That Could Tank the Season for Cooper Flag.
That's going to happen.
And the first team is the Warriors.
Oh.
He says it's crazy to think the latest dynasty could land the number 1 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. We don't expect that either. However, all it would take is an injury to Steph Curry, and the Warriors would suddenly go from a playoff contender to a lottery-bound team. Let's hope Curry stays healthy as he starts the season at 36 years old.
Well, Larry, I've said this. I don't know if it was our show we did last week, but I brought up the fact that the moves they're making this offseason bear a resemblance to 2020 when they were just really grabbing all these random free agents. I know the free agents this offseason are a little better, but Glenn Robinson III was picked up, Alec Burks, Brad Wanamaker's, like it's very similar. And that iteration of the Warriors in 2020, Stephen Curry got hurt 4 games in and they were cooked. And if something like that happens again this year, I could see it. Cooper Flag is suddenly in play. Unfortunately, a whole season is just wasted if that happens. But
and we're assuming that maybe Ainge is holding out for Kuminga. But if the Jazz want Cooper Flag, is that his name, Cooper Flag?
Correct.
If they want him, the best way for them to get him is to trade Markkanen for picks, not for Kuminga.
I've said that earlier in the show. 100% agree. Like, if that's the case, Ainge I mean, he wants to move on. I mean, if he wants to tank, get Lauri off your roster, man. And I maybe he wants more. Who knows what this is coming down to? But
you never know. But I mean, very interesting there.
And
then the other team that might be involved in this Flag situation is Brooklyn, right? They don't have a franchise player at all.
They're 100%. So
if you could somehow get Cameron Johnson from them and they can bottom out and get the number 1 pick in the draft and get Flag, maybe that's something they'd be interested in.
Yeah. Right now it looks like it's realistically it's going to be what? Brooklyn, Detroit, maybe Portland, there's only a handful of teams that, as of right now, you could say have no shot next year, like Charlotte,
Washington, maybe.
Washington, yeah. So those are the. And if the Warriors, if Stephen Curry gets hurt at the beginning of the season, yes, they're in that list as well because they have no shot in hell at anything without Steph. They're so reliant on him. Like, we still don't know who the number 2 scorer on this team is. I mean, people are saying maybe Kuminga, maybe Podziemski, but like, they haven't proven themselves to be like consistent scorers. I mean, this team is still lacking severely. That's why that Lauri Markkanen trade is so important, or one more big deal is important. Steph does not have help on this team. Like, it's going to be interesting, no doubt.
Going to be very interesting. When do you expect the Warriors will make a move?
That's a great question, man. I mean, you'd think by the time training camp starts, but more, I don't know. This has been a weird waiting game. I haven't seen something like this in a while, man, where teams are just standing pat. There's a lot of players still out there. Like I said, we brought up Okogie early in the show of the Suns. He's still out there as a free agent. He hasn't been signed. There's still actually free agents out there. So there's still a lot to shake off and shake out and shake down before we know how it's going to look. But the Warriors got to do something else, man. They got to do something else. Little Bill bringing up LiAngelo Ball of the Hornets. I don't think Charlotte's going to give him up, though. I'm pretty sure they're set with him.
Castillo?
Who? What?
Isn't that the guy who stole stuff in China or something?
Oh, that's the brother, the other brother.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
There was
Not
Lonzo,
LiAngelo.
there was LaMelo, and then there was
LaMelo.
Castillo.
I was thinking of LaMelo. You're right. I think LiAngelo is the one that got busted for stealing in China. Was that him? That was LiAngelo, right? Yeah.
Yes, it was. Made himself an international incident because for some goods in China. LiAngelo. There you go.
Oh my God.
I'll say the one thing I thought we were going to hear a lot more of. I thought we were going to hear a lot more from Daddy Ball.
Yeah, he got quiet.
LeVar has just, going into the draft, he did his kids a huge disservice by talking as much as he did. I think there was a very good chance that if he had just shut his pie hole, that maybe LaMelo would have been a Warrior. But once he started talking and talking and talking and talking, and just the idea that Kerr was going to have to consult with, LeVar Ball, about his lineup. That was a turnoff, and it makes you wonder if LeVar Ball was just like a regular dad and not some sideshow Bob. Do you think the Warriors would have gone for LaMelo at number 2?
I would say yes. As crazy as that sounds, you're absolutely right, man. It's funny you bring it up. That dude scared people away. Remember him when he was going on First Take with Stephen A. and those crazy back and forths they had? Yeah, he scared people away. Do you think?
And he is totally shut up.
Do you think there's any truth to the rumors that remember they had that shoe brand that's the reason why the Suns have all
maybe these, Big Baller?
Yeah, the Big Baller. Like, do you think there's any truth to that being the cause of the injuries that his sons are experiencing? I mean, Lonzo's career could be over. It's kind of sad,
Yeah, and they're talented guys. I mean, at least I don't know about the third kid, but the Lonzo had a talent, and obviously LaMelo. Where's LaMelo been, by the way?
I don't know. That's a great question. I'll Google search him real fast, but that's a good question. And I think he got pardoned for his crime too, if I'm not mistaken.
Z9er says King's gonna beat the Warrior ass. All right, easy.
Well, let me say this, Larry, because
easy there. Mr.
Who
Beam.
wrote that? Your brother in Sacramento, who's a judge,
right?
You and him have a
Z9er at 224 says King's going to beat the Warrior ass.
Oh, you're right. But let me ask Larry. Right now, the Kings are the better team. Would you disagree with that, or agree?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Kings are the better.
Warriors got to make another move. They got to make another move. The
Kings just got DeRozan, man.
Oh, that's what a good move for them.
I mean, DeRozan. Did you see the standing ovation that DeRozan got at the Summer League?
I did.
I mean, that's what I love about Sacramento is that they're like so excited for DeRozan. I mean, in their minds, they like got Jordan. You know what I mean? It was like, I mean, seriously, he's like their Jordan. I mean, this guy is going to drink for free, eat for free. I mean, he's going to be the toast of Sacramento, man. That guy could go anywhere and get, any reservation. I mean, and I loved it too, because DeMar didn't shine those people and big league them. He like embraced them and sitting there with Vivek and, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like because I went to college there and I've got an affinity for Sacramento. I think it's a underrated city. I mean, I saw Gilbert Arenas. Did Gilbert Arenas play there? No, he played for the Wizards. He played for the Warriors and the Wizards. Gilbert Arenas was just ripping the tar out of Sacramento the other day on some podcast. And it's like, dude, why?
What was he saying specifically about
just how it sucks and it's a boring town and this and that? It's like,
it's quiet,
you know what? I've been to almost every city in the NBA. You cannot convince me that Sacramento, California is worse than Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Is Milwaukee bad? I've never been to Milwaukee.
Memphis, Tennessee. I mean, Sacramento is an hour and a half drive to one of the greatest cities in the world, San Francisco.
It's not better than Salt Lake City.
It's an hour drive away from Tahoe, which is phenomenal. In the winter, in the summer, it's just incredible. You have no humidity. You got warm weather. You can buy, if you're an NBA player, you're making millions of dollars. You can buy just an unbelievable pimp pad in Sacramento. It's hardly like a disaster. Have you noticed that almost all these players that go play professionally there wind up liking it? Weber, Harrison Barnes, they all love Sacramento because it's a super underrated place. There's no difference at all between Sacramento and San Jose. I mean, San Jose and Sacramento are the same goddamn place.
Yeah, that's the only weather is the
Except
only.
Except it's a whole lot more expensive to live in San Jose. I'd
too.
Much rather live in Sacramento than San Jose. Much rather.
I think Sacramento, when you're ranking it among all NBA cities, it's got to be higher than Salt Lake City. I think that's an easy one.
You ever been to Detroit?
I'll put it. I've never been to Detroit.
Sacramento is Shangri-La compared to Detroit.
I've been to Michigan, but not Detroit.
Have you been to Portland? Portland is
I like Portland's a good city. Portland's a good city.
Portland
but what about
is
Phoenix?
ass compared to Sacramento.
I'll take Sac over Phoenix. I'll take Sac over.
I like Phoenix.
I'll take Sac over Dallas.
I'll take Sac over Dallas. Dallas, a metropolitan city. I take Sacramento over San Antonio.
I'll take Sacramento over Houston.
Oh hell yes.
Has
anybody been to Houston, Texas? Oh my God! I mean, this is literally Houston, Texas, where roaches go to retire.
It's vile. It's vile.
If you like a swamp with tons of crunchy, ugly bugs and the worst humidity that you've ever experienced in your life, then go to Houston. But people act like Sacramento is awful. Sacramento's awesome compared to some of these places.
I'll take Sac over Orlando.
I haven't spent a lot of time in Orlando, but I think you're probably right.
Yeah, there's nothing there except Disney World. But
I would say I can have a weekend in Sacramento or a weekend in Oklahoma City.
There's another one. Yes, thank you. Oklahoma City's another one.
Excuse me?
Sac is way better.
I don't care how much money Clay Bennett funneled to David Stern. Oklahoma City sucks. Oklahoma City's garbage.
There's nothing going on in OKC. If you drive,
have you been to Minneapolis?
If you drive a little bit east to Norman, Oklahoma, now you're finding some fun things to do.
Have you been to Minneapolis? Minneapolis has got really nice people. Really nice people. I mean, really, really nice people. But you got to plug your car in. And then if you have any kind of a nice house, you need screens. You need your deck screened in. Otherwise, you're just a gigantic calamine lotion with you're getting like 19 mosquito bites. I mean, how many times have you enjoyed 19 mosquito bites? That's what Minneapolis is in the summertime. Minneapolis is the land of Great Lakes. Guess what Great Lakes mean? Mosquitoes. Tons of mosquitoes. So it's freezing in the winter. You got to plug your car in, and you're hours away from Chicago. So I mean, don't tell me, oh, well, you just buzzed down to Chicago. What? No, I've driven those roads. You're hours and hours from Chicago. You're not near Chicago. It's freezing as hell. In the summer, it's a gigantic bug spray. My God. Sacramento destroys Minneapolis. Destroys.
G. Martinez brings up Indiana, but I've heard Indianapolis is actually a great city. I've never been there. I don't know if you have.
Well, Indiana's a state.
Correct. But they play in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Indianapolis is not great either. I mean, it's
not okay.
Freezing
there's another one.
cold. It's freezing.
There's another one. David Mobley, you can go F yourself for saying California is a trash state. That is propaganda. You said, by the way, Larry,
California, you can say whatever you want. We've got our own problems in California. California's got the ocean, the mountains, the climate. California's
clean water, clean air.
California is run poorly, but California is a wonderful place.
Where isn't run poorly, Larry? Every state.
But I'm just saying.
Poorly.
I mean, right now, San Francisco, L.A., San Diego, it's a gigantic cesspool of crap and homeless and disaster, and it's bad. It's really bad. But don't tell me that California is bad. Come on.
Yeah.
The wine country, San Diego, Southern California. I mean, go walk around, Malibu and tell me that LA sucks.
What's better, Larry, Sacramento or Cleveland?
Oh, Sacramento.
Well, there you go. So we found about 10 cities that Sacramento.
There's probably even more than that.
Well, I looked at the whole standings, and I think we named every one.
Definitely better than Detroit. Definitely better than Cleveland.
Well, what about like Philadelphia? Would you say Philly's better?
No, Philadelphia has more rats than any city in the country. So if you don't like rats, there's a lot of rats.
What about
it's a lot of rats. I mean, seriously, you do. I was walking through downtown Philly on a Sunday morning to go down to WIP to host a show. I probably saw, just running on the street, 150 rats.
That's
a ton of rats. Big, ugly sewer rats, really bad. But Philadelphia, it's got the Liberty Bell. Philadelphia's got American history. Philadelphia. I'll say this: the other side of the, Camden, New Jersey, on the other side of the bridge from Philadelphia. Now that's hell on earth. But Philadelphia, I would say, is, there's some good things going on. I mean, Philadelphia's got great culture, great museums, major sports. I mean, it's a major metropolitan city, restaurants, entertainment. I mean, Philly's the fourth largest city in the country.
I found one more city that Sac might be better than Atlanta. What do you think about that?
My daughter's in Atlanta right now.
Why?
Because she goes to Emory in Atlanta.
Oh, okay, for school. Okay,
for school. I don't like that. I don't like the humidity. So Atlanta's not for me.
Same. That's why.
But Atlanta is the business mecca of the South. So it's not like there's no jobs. It's not like there's no opportunity. There's not like there's no culture. There's some great culture. There's some great food. JT Conlon says Atlanta has great food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite city in America, but I'd probably put it over Sac.
All right, Larry, we've been doing this. Dude, I love the fact that you and I can host a show and 2 hours flies by like it's nothing. That's incredible. That says a lot. Are we done? Anything else?
Yes, I think we're done.
All right. So I don't know how the folks felt about the list of players, but the Warriors do have options. Okay. It's not Lauri or bust, but
we went through all the options, and there's some good ones there. There are some good options. The Markkanen Collins one seems to me that seems viable, but I know that lots of teams in the NBA want no part of John Collins. So
most of them agree. Yeah.
So, but maybe because Golden State could use that big player, and he's not old and he can run the floor. I mean, who would you rather have in a game, John Collins or like Kevon Looney? John Collins or Quentin Post? John Collins,
good, but
John Collins might not be bad for the Warriors. He might be a nice little fit.
Jalen Lopez in the chat brings up Miles Turner of Indiana. I didn't mention him because I don't think the Pacers are trading him. I think he's staying put.
He ain't going anywhere. You got to remember this. He's a 6'11", 40% 3-point shooter who's in his prime. So Indiana's trying to get to the finals with Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, and they feel like they're a player or two away. Like if you could offer them some player they wanted, they would move him, but I think he's there.
Steve-O's asking, where's your blue light? Is that because I led the charge today? And
oh, that's right.
Do you have a blue light for Hoops Talk?
For my Warriors.
Oh, there you go. Better late than never. 2 hours, 24
sorry,
minutes in.
Steve-O. Steve-O, I wish Sam Lamore says, did Ralph Barbieri have a favorite city?
Eating meat cheese.
You know, I've always said my favorite city is Mill Valley. It's not really a city,
Oh,
but you know, there's great food. The people are very nice. I can drive the Miata with the top down. I love Mill Valley.
Meat cheese.
The meat cheese.
What was his old saying? Angels fly lightly.
Angels fly because they take themselves lightly.
Like,
Oh, I miss Ralph.
funny
My
Ralph
favorite
story
part
on
about Ralph is he would never take any vacation all year. Then we would get to like December the 2nd, and he would have accrued so much vacation that he was done for the year. And instead of just dipping out like any normal person would dip out, Ralph insisted on telling everybody,
You know, today's I got a lot of vacation. It's piled up. So I know it's only December the 2nd, but I just wanted to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever it is that you celebrate. I just wanted to say have a great holiday season and great New Year.
and it's like all of it so he could just basically tell us that, you know, he had the kind of clout where he didn't have to work from December 2nd on. And some guys like, Ralph, you're on vacation for the rest of the month?
It's like, yeah, I know you're going to miss me.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you know this, Larry. You probably do, but I remember he once had a producer buy wolf urine. Was it deer urine? He had
Antler spray?
He had him buy like either deer or it must have been wolf urine, and you pour it around your property, and I guess it keeps like things away. And I forgot what he would have Tony Ryan or Jen Violet, one of his two producers, like buy him. I think it was some animal's urine. I guess it works to keep he was an interesting character. He partied. He lived a life. I just want people to know this. Ralph Barbieri lived.
Mark Graves says Ralph's favorite was Disneyland.
Craig, you're going to Disneyland? Oh, you know what? You got to go to Toontown.
I told you that one, right? Didn't I? So Ralph,
say it again.
Ralph's oldest kid and my oldest kid were just happened to be born like 2 weeks apart.
He had more than one kid?
Oh no, he had just one.
Okay.
But I have four. So my oldest daughter and him and his his boy were literally born like 2 weeks apart. So here we are, and even though we're 25 years apart in age or whatever it was, 20 years apart, whatever it was, we both had newborns at the same time. So I said, hey, Ralph, if you ever need any help, I'm sure my wife would be willing to, give you some pointers. And, if you have any questions or this or that, just let me know and this and that. So we had this kind of kinship about our kids being little at the same time. So he takes a week, goes to Disneyland. This is a couple years later after the kids are, 3 or 4 years old. And so he comes in, he's like, Craig, you got to go to Disneyland. I go, well, we're actually going to go in a few weeks. He's like, hey, you're going to Disneyland? I'm like, yeah, Ralph, we're going. And he's like, oh, I'll leave you a voicemail on your work voicemail about, where you can go. I'm like, cool. So what's your extension? So I give him my extension. I never had any voicemails on my voicemail from work, right? Because I never really used it. Or if I had one, it would last forever. So the next day I go look to my voicemail. You have 6 messages. I'm like, 6 messages? Wow. So it's like, boop. Craig, hey, it's Ralph. I just wanted to let you know, I know you're going to Disneyland, and I just got back there with Tate, and it was wonderful. And let me just tell you, there's some ways you got to do this. Now, I did my homework on this. What you do is you go into the park. You don't go into California Adventure. You go into Disneyland, not California Adventure. The first thing you do is you get on the tram, and you go to the far side of the park, and you work from the back to the front. Don't work from the front to the back, Craig. You're never going to get everything done. You got to go from the back to the front. Can't go front to back. So all this, and all of a sudden he goes, boop.
And then another message.
Next one. Message number 2.
Craig, it's Ralph. I know I got cut off there. I just wanted to say the Disney princesses, they gather in Toontown. And so what you need to do is if you want to get those signatures and you want your Anna to, meet the Disney princesses, you got to go and you got to get in line. And they're really nice girls. And the one I talked to the other day, she was a sophomore, I think, at Fullerton. Really nice girl, very pretty. Boop. Oh, hey, Krueger, it's Ralph again. I just wanted to say, make sure you go from Toontown. Then there's a little door right behind the monorail, and you can get to Matterhorn that way simply. And you can cut off about 150 yards. A lot of people are walking. You don't need boop. Krueger, hey, sorry to be long and winded. I just wanted to tell you that you definitely go to Goofy's Kitchen. You got to go to Goofy's Kitchen for breakfast. It's a little pricey. I got to admit, it's a little pricey, but you're gonna love it. The characters are there. Boop. It's like, so I go in, I told the bosses, I'm like, dude, Barbieri left me 6 voicemails. And the boss at the time, Bob Agnew's like, I got to tell Sal. He goes, Tony, get down here. Tony comes walking down the hall, he's limping. He's got the bad back. What's going on? Krueger? What's going on here? And I go, Ralph left me 6 voicemails about Disneyland on my machine. He's like, a 6-bagger. Barbieri. And then he starts ducking his head into Sarge's office. He's like, hey, Sarge, Barbieri just left Krueger a 6-bagger on Disneyland on the voicemail. We're going down to Bobby's office. We're going to go listen. So now we got Sarge in there. We got Sal in there. We got Agnew in there. Boop. Get a Goofy's Kitchen. Boop, boop, boop. Oh my God, dude. It was hilarious. And when Ralph came in, I guess Sal banged on him a little bit and was like, you left Krueger a 6-bagger about Disneyland. He's like,
well, and for people who, and what's great, one of the many craziest things about Ralph is that's how he communicated with everyone. Like, he would never call people directly. He would leave these messages. And
my favorite Ralph of all time.
You know what?
There's a good Monday night game tonight. I'm like, I know, yeah, it's gonna be good, Ralph. I can't wait to check that out. He's like, hey, do you still got a guy who could get me down? And I'm like, you mean a bookie? And he's like, yeah, I don't like to throw that around, but yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I got a bookie. I go, Ralph, hey, just two things. My guy pays.
He's like, great. That's great. That's awesome. I love a bookie that pays.
And I go, but Ralph, my guy collects. and you know what he said? He just goes, ooh. I think Tolbert might have even jumped in, was like, oh, Ralph, I don't know about that. I don't know that's something, He's like, but my guy pays, Ralph. He's like, oh, good. But my guy collects.
Ooh, I don't know.
Go Sharks.
Go Sharks. Brian Sabian with us here on the Yuma guest line.
He was a character, man.
Brian, I got one question for you. How about Saltalamacchia?
And then just some random Italian guy that Ralph liked. And you hear Sabian go, what? Ralph, why?
He's like, I don't know. I was like Saltalamacchia.
There you go. Someone was
incredible.
Asking. There you go. Yeah. You just made Rob's day. There you go.
Rob, excuse me, Brian. What do you think about Saltalamacchia?
Ralph.
Oh.
Why, Ralph?
Awesome. Rest in peace, Ralph.
I loved Ralph. I know sometimes people hear me doing my impersonations of Ralph, and they're like, why, you're speaking ill of the dead.
No,
absolutely.
No.
Come on. No, you don't understand the kind of relationship that he and I had.
Yeah.
we had a great relationship. He was like my I don't want to say hero, because that's a little bit too much, but he was like my the guy that I wanted to be. Like when I was in high school, I used to sit on my bed and listen to KMBR and dream about being a host on that channel. And I wanted to be Ralph. I wanted to be opinionated and talk sports in San Francisco and this and that. So, getting a chance to get to know him as a friend and, doing a bunch of different events with him, hanging out with him, having a lot of fun through the years, man. I miss the guy. He was one of a kind. He was truly one of a kind.
Yeah, that's crazy. Larry, love you, man. This was fun.
Love you too, bro.
Thank you for 15 minutes of Ralph Barbieri. It sounds like it was a hit, man. The chat loved it. So beautiful stuff.
Damick1212 says Larry Krueger is like the Jay Farrow of sports talk. Did I ever tell you that Jay Farrow and I hung out when Jay Farrow came to Tommy T's in Pleasanton? I'm a big Jay Farrow fan from SNL.
Yeah.
So he came on our show to promote it. And so I asked Jen Violet, I'm like, Jen, can you get me some tickets for Jay's show? And she's like, absolutely. And I said, I'm a huge Jay Farrow fan. So she told Jay, and my wife and I went backstage after the show and hung out in the green room with Jay Farrow. And just amazing. Just an amazing, very funny comedian, really good guy.
Very talented individual. No,
what a
awesome,
talent. And
awesome.
Just a cool, really cool, down to earth guy. We hung out back in his green room and drank beers for like 45 minutes after the show.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Great
All
guy,
right, brother.
Anyway,
we'll do this again soon. I can't believe your son is in Europe, dude. I hope the rest of his trip is incredible, and let's hope the Warriors do something.
Now, are you going to fire the close, or do you have a close, or do you want me to?
I have
close?
a close that doesn't have like your info on it. If you want me to fire it, I'll fire it.
No, I don't think I can. I think since you initiated, you have to close.
I do, yeah, but I don't have to. We can just close without a close. I mean, do you want to close?
I'll close if you don't want to close. I have no idea.
All right, folks. Real quick, Larry, how can people follow you? The Krueger Show, subscribe to it on YouTube.
Stop following me.
50,000 subscribers. That is unbelievable. Congratulations. Social media, Sports Larry K, right? For all the
Sports
handles.
Larry K on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere else. And then on YouTube, the Krueger Show. And I'm looking at my analytics right now. We have 44,235 total subs. So if you're in the chat and you've yet to hit like and subscribe, please hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, all that does is it just helps the algorithm find more of Size shows and more of our shows together. And if you hit subscribe and you click that notification bell, every time either one of us goes live, you'll get a little alert saying, hey, Size going live, Crew's going live. And you don't have to miss any of it. So Size the man, Locked On was foolish to let Cy go.
Well,
I just saw a Kylan Mills Warrior video right before I came on. So you know how much I like Kylan, but I'm a Cy Sotsis man myself.
Thank you, brother. Thank you,
and I just want everybody to help Cy hit 2,000 subs. And onward and upward from there, man. You're a great talent. You've been a great talent for years and years and years. I got into an argument the other day because I was quoting you to Damon.
Oh, with Damon Bruce? I missed your message that morning. I'm sorry.
I got into it because basically Damon believes that Myers left on his own accord. And I'm like, he was fired. And I don't care what anybody says. And I don't care what anybody else says about this. I know enough about this to know that Bob Myers, if he had chosen to stay, could not stay. So to me, that means fired. Bye-bye, fired.
Yeah.
And Damon and I got into this, and he's like, hey, look, I said, size of the belief that I think Myers was fired. I think there's other people that cover this team. He's like, well, only Slater. He's like naming only like Slater, Poole, Kareth. He's like naming like 3 or 4 people that if it didn't come from them, it doesn't count. And I'm like, well, I don't care about any of those people. I take my Warrior knowledge from Cy.
Thank you.
And you aren't the only person. I've got people that actually worked for the organization, who still work for the organization, who absolutely swore to me that Myers could not have stayed if he had chosen to stay. So that means he was fired.
Yeah.
We got into a big argument. Me and Damon did when we were kind of screaming at each other. And I was like, hey, let's get Cy in here. And he can verify that Myers didn't just leave on his own accord, that he was fired. Just because you have other options of what you can do next as a career choice doesn't mean that you weren't fired. Just means that
is true. 100% true. You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Bob Myers is running the Commanders now, and he probably has a piece of the team, and he's going to make tons of cash, and but doesn't mean that Joe Lacob wanted it back.
And it's also very important to note that not all the information going on in sports, whether it's personal information, whatever it is public, right? Like I would say, I don't know if you agree with me on this or not, but I would say of all the information that's out there about every executive, coach, player, we know, when I say we, I mean the public knows probably about 10% of everything. I really wish Larry, you and I could just open.
I mean, take Klay Thompson. Take Klay Thompson for a second. Did the Warriors want him back? I just saw an interview last week where Steve Kerr said, I am desperate for Klay to come back.
Exactly.
I saw Mike Dunleavy say, we are desperate to re-sign Klay. And yet Klay walked.
Yep.
So how come the general manager and the coach of a team, the two guys that probably should have the biggest influence on a player staying or not, both said they were desperate to keep Klay Thompson, and yet Klay Thompson is gone.
Well, Mike Dunleavy Jr. said Jordan Poole's not going anywhere, and like 4 days later, he's out the door. I mean,
he's not going anywhere. 4 days later, he's gone. So, yeah, I mean, it's just,
it's great. Yeah.
What did somebody just say? I just subbed to you?
Oh, yeah. Got a few people. I never know how to take compliments, man. So I just say thank you. But sincerely, man, thank you. People are subscribing because of you, Larry. And
everybody hit like and subscribe. Seriously, help Cy get to 50,000. Nobody deserves it more. Your content's fantastic, bro.
Thanks,
and
right back at you, man.
And we'll do a lot of Warriors throughout the year. And
the Locked On thing, real fast, just to add to that, it wasn't just me that they did not value, Larry. They wanted you to be the Bay Area host, right? Because Locked On has these regional shows as well,
right?
And they lowball the shit out of you. They it's just they don't know what the hell they're doing there, man. That's
they wanted to own my channel and make me an employee of my channel, of my own channel. So I mean, it's okay. Hey, if there's a purpose for people who have no ability to build anything, to partner with somebody like that and go that route. So I would never question. It wasn't right for me, but it doesn't mean it's not right for some people. And I'm sure there's lots of people. I know Brian Peacock and others who do very well with Locked On. Lots of people I know up in the Pacific Northwest who are do football shows for around the Seahawks. Very, very doing very well with Locked On. So it just wasn't for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And they treated like Casey Stern, like him and I started a collaboration yesterday. We host a show that's going to be weekly for now called NBA Coast to Coast that runs on both our channels. And it's just crazy, man. They literally reached out to him. Like they saw Casey and I do a show on Locked On. And Casey and I have tremendous chemistry. I recommend you bringing him on your program at some point.
Oh, I love him. Really do. I don't know if he remembers me, Cy, but you gotta hook us up because I used to do a show on Mad Dog Sirius XM on Mad Dog Radio.
I remember that.
Called Overtime. And Casey was a regular guest of ours. At the time, he was a baseball specialist for us. He talked nothing but baseball. But he's really, really good. And I know he's been through hell and back with his kids and his family. I was so happy to hear that's all in the rear view. But, give my love and
I will. And tell him
I'm a big fan. I've always been a big fan of his.
Same. Because for a long time, people know him probably best for filling in as a host on NBA on TNT. He would fill in for Ernie Johnson, but he's as much of a baseball guy as he is basketball. So if you ever want to talk baseball, he'll come on your show. But the Casey Stern thing, you're right. First of all, really like horrible tragedy that happened to him. And if you just Google his name, it's all the stories that come up. It explains why he left inside the NBA on TNT. But when it comes to the reason why I bring him up is because with Locked On, speaking of these regional channels, right? So they briefly were talking to you about doing like the San Francisco one before like they made you an offer that was just offensive, right? But with Casey, they saw him doing a hit with me on Locked On, and they were like asking me for his contact information. And so we were having a discussion with Locked On about NBA Coast to Coast being on Locked On. And they were also talking about having Casey be the New York guy, like the Locked On New York. And then after like 3 weeks or a month of going back and forth, they just ghosted him. They literally were leading him on saying, we love you. We think you'd be a great fit for Locked On New York. We think you and Cy have this incredible chemistry. And then nothing. Like that is just not the right way to treat human beings, man. That's just it's grossly unprofessional and discourteous. And yeah, so I'm Larry, and a huge reason I went independent is because of you, man. I saw that. I mean, you inspired, I'm guessing, myself and a lot of other people, dude. Like you built your program, nearly 50,000 subs. That is no small feat, dude. Congratulations.
Thanks,
I'm
man.
proud of you, brother. I'm happy for you. You're killing it. Just keep it going, man.
I'm loving it. I'm I'm working with my son. I'm working, for myself. I work, I can do, if tomorrow I want to have 5 streams in a row, I can have 5 streams in a row. If 40 minutes from now, the Warriors trade for Jimmy Butler, I can go live immediately on my channel and have great guests like yourself and others. So it's the best of all worlds. I really enjoy it. I love being on the radio. I was a radio man through and through.
Yeah.
But you know what? This has been an absolute joy. I love it. I hope you guys all love the content that we put out on the Niners, the Giants, the Warriors, the Bay Area sports. Just loving it, just loving it and loving producing the content. Hope you guys are loving digesting the content. And we're working with Kev. He just graduated from Cal Poly. He's been a huge shot in the arm for my channel this year.
He's talented, dude. Your kid is talented.
He's very talented. He's very smart. And you know what? It's awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll be on tonight. I should mention, normally, well, let me double check that.
And while you're double checking that, I just want to mention to people, because I don't know. Yeah. You don't upload regular podcasts, right? Like you're almost exclusively on YouTube. Is that correct?
No. Everything I do goes on Spotify.
Oh, then I stand corrected. I was going to say, because every one of these episodes go on all podcast platforms. So if you want to hear Larry and his Ralph Barbieri impression without a video, which probably sounds even more amazing than it did watching it, you can subscribe to Golden Days on all podcast platforms, but you could also subscribe to the Krueger Show on Spotify. I didn't know that, so good to know.
Spotify, yep. And also, I just wanted to, I'm going through my schedule for the week. I just wanted to make sure I have the right schedule out here for you guys. Okay, here it is. While you're doing that as well, Damon, Bruce, and I are going to be doing a hit tomorrow at 11 a.m. So today is Tuesday. So tonight at 9:00, the great Dieter Kurtenbach will stop by, and then tomorrow at 8:45. That's right.
At some point, I will show up when I'll let you do the invite, but at some point, we'll do a whole thing there where Dieter and I will be together.
Damon tomorrow at 8:45 on the channel. Tomorrow night at 8:30, the great Raj will be in the house. Thursday, you can catch me on 95.7 The Game. I'll be sitting in for Dibs with Willard from 2 to 6 p.m.
Nice.
And then Friday morning, you can catch me with Guru on 95.7 The Game from 10 a.m. to 2. And then Saturday, 9 a.m., the coach will stop by. So a lot of stuff on the channel. I'm going to produce a few more videos this afternoon as well. But good stuff, Cy.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Is it time for the out?
We're ready.
Okay, so
except Ryan Martin says, Larry sounds like a woman complaining about the damn weather.
Shut the F up and kiss my ass. So today's outro for Krueger's subscribers and viewers, I apologize. This is a Golden Days outro. I'll make something for both shows next time we do this. So, but with that said, love you, Larry. We'll do this again soon. Thank you, everyone, for the incredibly kind words, man. There was a lot of love in the chat today, with the exception of the one person bitching about you talking about the weather. You can, again, kiss my ass. To everyone else, thank you. And Larry, love you, man. Are we good? We're done? We out?
We're good.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Lucky.